So I have packet spreadsheet, got lecture sheets too. So, Wednesday, December 6th, 6:30, this is our, special city council meeting, a budget workshop. So let's do a roll call. Here,
Okay. Mayor Ikorst,
here,
Counselor Phillips,
here,
Counselor Richards,
Here.
Counselor Pendergrass,
here.
Counselor Kraus.
He's not here, but I'd like to make a public notice that he did call in time to be on Zoom. The 3-day advance notice, and it just didn't get published in time, so he should be on Zoom, but he did do everything correctly to try to be a part of this meeting.
Kind of.
He did do it. It just didn't get published, and Mike's got the notes of everything that went along with it, so he was on that.
There's two options. As explained to him, if he does join us, he can choose to not participate. Not he can be viewed but no speaking, or he can be speaking with some interaction. Let's put it that way.
And then he elected not to, so that it wouldn't be an issue whatsoever. That might
We
come
didn't
up.
hear that.
Yeah, so that was his choice.
Is that
His
what you
choice to
heard?
me was, he was, okay, I will zoom in.
Yeah, and that was it. He's not gonna participate in the meeting because he doesn't want to create an issue.
Okay,
that
so he
there-
chose the option to, okay, thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying that.
Yeah.
We couldn't tell from his email what he said. Okay, well, we'll just kind of watch it. If he joins us, that's fine, so. All right, so tonight we're gonna review our preliminary budget worksheet where we're at right now, and, this is a opportunity to kind of go through the budget, make any suggested changes, before we bring it to the council next Tuesday night for, approval. So with that, we can do a couple different ways of doing it. I can kind of share overview where we're at right now with our bottom line and, where the challenges are. There has been, since our last time since our administrator left, I've continued to work on the budget. Refining a little bit, some things were incomplete, and you'll see in the spreadsheet, there were a lot of sequencing between like the salary spreadsheet but first, let me just kind of show you where we're at today. So over on if you go to page, very last page, 11. At the bottom of that page, there's, and I show them on the screen as well. Here's what we adopted for our preliminary tax levy of 1.5 million. 1.506 million is what we adopted at the end of September. And that was a 0.483 tax rate. Comparing that to our current year, 1,075,000, so it's a 0.374. So there's quite a jump in our ratio. So this 1.506 is what was sent to the Olmsted County. And based on that preliminary tax levy, as well as increases of home values this is throughout the state of Minnesota. Everybody's seeing a big increase on city taxes, Orinoco city tax. And that's concerning for a lot of residents that it's increased that much, anywhere from 30 to 40% on their own home values, and you've probably seen that yourself. So since that time, me going through it and everything, and going through the formula, there was a lot of interaction between the salary spreadsheet shown here with the salaries, linking back to the overall spreadsheet. There were changes, so those things I've incorporated into what is now the general tax levy is 1.35 million. which is a tax rate of 0.433. And just 30 minutes ago, I was looking through the spreadsheet again for many times as I looked at them and realized that the seasonal salaries was not in here. And very quickly, between that figure and the tax, it's about $17,000. So that's, I didn't want to make that change now, but so I'll make that change, but that's something I come across just at the very end. And since that time that we looked at last, or when the administrator left, there were changes that came in to us. One was on line 18, the revenue was our local government aid.
Page 7.
On page 1. Well, the local government aid previously going to be 84,000. That's for 2023. And with the legislature, they've updated to, they gave us a big boost. All the cities got a big boost of 143,000. So that made a slight change in our revenue side. While we're there, you see a maintenance agreement. This is still in process, and I don't know where this number will end up at, but I was led to be, there's some discussion previously, and Sonny was talking about 40,000, but that's a disputed number because that has not been finalized yet. So that's a question yet. Township supporting first responders. So that's that's to be finalized, but hopefully it will be here soon. One thing I want to mention in that when you look at budgets overall, you have revenues and you have expenditures, and those have to balance out. And we weren't quite experiencing that with the spreadsheet that I started working at. We were short of our income from property taxes was not correct. When I say that, you go to the very top of that, you'll see a figure of 417,358 on line number 3.
358 or 158? 158. I have one.
Line 3, it says 417,158.
Yeah.
Okay, that is the revenue from everything from line 6 down through the total of the revenues. So when you put that there, expenditures is 1.72 million. That's our expenditures. So to balance out revenue and expenditures, you subtract those two. And that leaves us with our property taxes, or what we call adjusted general levy. That's the figure that we will use. We will tell the county we want to use for taxes towards balancing our budget. So if you look at that 1.36 million, and then you go to the very last page 11 at the bottom of that, you'll see $103. Now I'm short about a few $1,000s there, but they should be. I'll go through it again, make sure they're right. But that's our general levy compared to 1.459. And then you add our debt service, which is a couple bonds that we have continuing to pay. That same 47,018 was on in here. So 1.506. We're down to 1.34 million, 35.
What are those debt service bonds for?
Okay.
What are those bonds for in that debt service?
There's one for the Zembro River Hills Road. And another one's for the well, I think, or not the well. The bond on the shop. I got it here. It's on your, there's 2 extra sheets. In your packet.
When are they due to
So
expire?
the bond 306 is for the shop.
But when are they due to expire?
I don't know if it's a shop yet or not. There's some well loans that we pay internally ourselves. There's a debt service that we borrowed from the Whackensack and from the general fund. That's good for 10 years. It's still like 2027 or something like that. So that's the general overview. I'll have to go back and check these figures, but it's pretty close to that 1.35 million with the tax rate of 0.433. So from 374, which is what it is today, to 433, it's about, I think if you figure it's about 26% increase. 374 to 483 is closer to 40%. So we have made progress the right way. But in our residents' eyes, we can still continue to cut more to get. That's kind of the purpose for tonight. The salary spreads. Sonny, our previous administrator did a great job of taking each person's position in the case of Renee and Kane and splitting those out between administration, finance, facility, parks. Before, it's always kind of been lumped into one. So she took time to put percentages on each person's salary into these buckets. And one, this is a separate sheet that's, yeah. Then over on the right is the water and sewer enterprise funds. Those salaries will be going separate from the 100 fund. Well, if you look at the very left-hand column, starting from the bottom, the city administrator, Kane, Renee, the new full-time person we approved last week or last month, John Huey, John Kingsley. And then we're looking at a full-time administrative assistant. And then a part-time person to be using, we're not sure which bucket, but some support effort for project specialist, utility or finance for a half-time for 20 hours. That's currently what's proposed.
So I've got a question on some of those. So the first question, we see 95 for city administrator. That's where our previous city administrator came in. Where did we end up? Because I don't see a current for the city administrator. Are we saying,
Current to me,
well, that would be current, I suppose, because there's been.
use her salary or.
So, okay, so the other question I have. I'm looking at all these salaries and most of them increased by 6.5%. But I see the deputy clerks increased by 13.54. Is there a reason that that's doubled?
There was a $2 increase.
That's temporary.
It's temporary, but I didn't know how to split that out so much. Or whenever that time comes, depending on when we do get our administrator. It could be, we can either review that again or do something different there.
Yeah, because I don't want it to go on record that that's what we're proposing it.
I think the motion was pretty
Yeah,
specific.
right. So I think I'd be more comfortable having that as what it will be. As a standard, not the exception, because really that extra $2 an hour is the exception, correct? That's what we agreed upon. I just don't want it down in record, because right now, if you annualize it out, I mean, that's gonna be a double raise than the others got.
That's a good point. The other point is that, and this is something we need to seriously consider, is our pay equity across the board here with the different rankings. And we need to make sure we're out of step with pay equity and the job classes and.
I think, and I totally agree
So
with
that's
that.
why
We saw that with the admin assistant position.
Yeah,
When
we
you
were,
look around other cities, we're way off. We were. And so with that, I looked at medians. Jim and I both looked at medians, and
we
we,
pulled everything
get
from
into
LMC that
Yeah.
there was, so, I
Yeah.
mean, it's pretty legit on what
So-
we were working with, so.
yeah, so I agree. I think that needs to be visited. The equity.
Well, So you're saying we should change it or just leave it for budget
Well,
purposes?
I would feel more comfortable that we put it to what it is and not have the exception in there, cause to me, looking at this. This is telling me that Renee's raise is 13.54% versus the others are 6.5, 6.48, 6.49, you know, and I think we should be equitable across the board. And I know some are gonna be different based on experience, but I think we need to be in the spirit of being equitable.
So you're
I
just
don't
saying,
show that.
you're just saying this should reflect that.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, cause I don't want it to go out that because it's in here, we have to do it. You know, and I think we have it on record that $2 an hour up until a month after the permanent position has been filled.
Well, without somebody looking back at the minutes, it can be
Right.
misconstrued too easy.
Right, and
Figure
yeah,
point.
that's what I'm getting at.
At the same, on the same note of why we increased the $2 is because of the added work. And now it's part of the training for interim, for Perry to be involved with it too now, so Shirley be involved with it too. So when you do bring a new administrator in, there's gonna be a transition and training too, so that she's gonna have to be reliable for doing that.
And that's why we turned around and gave a month after the new one comes in, okay, to maintain the $2 an hour.
Right.
Addition that there was to give her time to be able to train, so we looked at that when
That's
we,
for a month after, that's right.
so we did look at that when we
No,
did.
you're right, the motion is for a month after she did, right?
Right, and Shirley will be here too, you know.
Surely she will be here.
Well, you know, we'll bring the person in ahead, so there is some overlap, so there's gonna be some there, but the idea though too is the person that we do hire comes in with that level of experience.
Yeah.
So. So yeah, I would like it to reflect what it really will be,
Reflect reality.
yeah, the actual versus the added.
And you wanna go into the administrative assistant too at this time, or where we're looking at, so we have that down as well?
Yeah, and what did I have? I think we figured out the administrative assistant and really not going to the high, not going to the extreme low, but going the median of all of them was, and I think we even went just below the median, was 28.50, I believe, per hour. Okay, right here in front of me, I can.
Which one?
That's
For the full-time admin assistant. 28.50.
Well, if you're saying administrative assistant is 28.50,
57,000 a year.
and our deputy clerk is 32. Okay. So. I get real nervous when we start. If we don't have a good pay equity plan here in front of us. Because the result of having an unequal pay equity is an expensive penalty, and that's what I'm concerned about. And I don't know the classifications of an admin assistant versus how they would stack in with,
What we did is we went to LMC, pulled out what they had for positions that were offered. We went to the like-size cities that we're looking at and took the range that there were, took an average of the range to be able to look at this, but we researched it that way. To what the equity seems to be right now out in the marketplace to come and get the right type people that there are. You know, and everything has been going up, and that's just the reality of what's out there and what's being offered for cities. So we researched it the right way to be able to have something that was equitable.
Right, and the other thing is the person that interviewed had a lot of experience. And so I would look at actually even paying a person with a lot more experience more than a person who didn't have that kind of experience. Because most of the time you have to pay for experience. But really, we didn't necessarily pay for experience. We did median. And, or just south of median.
Well, we're calling it an assistant, but I see down here on line 20, it says full-time, it's PW, I think it's Public Works, if I.
Well, that,
Well,
that's
that's
different.
different. So if you're looking at the
Right.
public work starting is at 27.
But you're looking at an assistant there for 27 too, so,
Mhm.
so they don't see where. What Jim is saying is out of line there for the 2850 on that. Want to get somebody hired, it'll. You know, end up having to pay to get people in them positions.
Right.
No, they're not gonna come in and work considerably lower.
Hey, you're gonna get what you pay for when it comes to it, but everything is going up. I know that the range that there was when we were looking at Public Works when they were started, for us to fill the last position that we did, we had to go to the high end of our salary range just to be able to get him to be interested to come and work for the city.
So the administrative assistant that we posted just recently. That was for full-time or half-time?
No, it was to finish this year as part-time, but to go into full-time starting January 1st, which is what we wanted to do.
And we approved it.
And that was on the application?
Well, that's what's here at line 17 says 40 hours full-time.
Oh, yeah, no, so. Okay. We didn't post the salary on the application.
No, we
We
didn't.
put a range, I
We
think.
didn't,
didn't we?
we didn't put a range, we just said depend upon well, the experience that you had, so we did not.
What was the rationale for doing that?
Because we didn't know.
Trying to figure out where everything is going on
You
in the
would
state.
advertise 2850, you might have got more people. Because basically you're asking for applicants to send their applications for no idea what the salary was.
Well, we
So why
kind of
did you do
did
that?
somewhat of the same thing with Sunny. We posted it. We posted it a lot lower and came in a lot higher. Because we weren't getting applicants.
Right.
I can also see the other side. You put a wage out there like that, and you're probably gonna get people that are very unqualified for it, thinking that they're gonna go for the gold.
That's part of the interview process.
Exactly, but still, it might weed some of them out to start with. And I'd have to do that.
So you're saying 2850 instead of 22.
Right.
See what that does.
Well, we were looking at that too, as you're doing your numbers there, Ryland. Yeah, we,
That goes up to 1.361. Okay, so it's about $11,000 increase.
and if you're looking at that, we don't know, and we never did fill that position for the project specialist. That there was this last year that was open too during that whole time, so. And it might be that that administrative assistant can take care of what that other project specialist would be. You know, in which case you've got, you know, kind of a balancing act that would be there that's not gonna change the bottom line.
But you do agree we can't hire a half-time person?
I
That
think
was
that
approved, or you guys approved that at the,
we approved. The halftime
The
was there
council.
as a project specialist, yes, and a full-time for the administrating assistant was what was approved.
Yeah, because the council approved what was it, a 1.5 FTE. So
Right.
a full-time and a half-time, because remember, it came up. Sonny wanted 3 half-time, and we said, we want a part-time and a full-time.
Okay.
Because it would be more.
so you're okay with the $25 figure then, is that right?
Yeah, we're okay with that. I'm just saying if we need to balance whatever it is, there's a way to do it, so.
And we're hoping we wouldn't necessarily need to fill that half-time. If we get a good enough applicant for the full-time, we may not have to
Exactly.
fill that half-time.
Well, I think there is a need because we've got over 500 sewer rates coming in and another 128, 32 water rates. And that's a lot of work.
Right.
Or not only Renee doing it too, but just anybody else coming in, because then we're also dealing with permits for sewer and water. And it's gonna be a lot of work on that between Renee and the administrative assistant. So I just wanna make sure I appreciate us hiring that half-time person. I think we ought to go ahead and start looking at that right away. So they're trained before. Because I think the workload is gonna determine a lot what that project specialist is. If it comes down to project specialist or helping with utility building is gonna rise to the top,
Mhm.
I
Right.
think. Yeah.
And the other idea here too is being that we're bringing a full-time person is to have cross-training between Renee and
Yeah,
that
that's-
full-time person. So Renee can take time off and feel good that things aren't gonna fall and we can feel good about it as well as the other way around.
Okay.
So I think there's a lot of value in a full-time.
Any other questions about salary before we go on to the next? So we're gonna come back to the big spreadsheet in a minute. I just want to show you. So this is just kind of a summary across the years of our total levy dollar figures, how it's increased, where it was this year, what the preliminary was, and kind of where we're at right now. And the last, any questions there?
I see that worksheet's different than what on mine,
I'm sorry.
I see that worksheet's different to what's on mine for the line 7,
Yeah, it's,
13, 16, 997.
no,
Where did that change?
go off just a little bit there. off by 3,000. That's right.
Yeah,
So the general levy is 1.314 now, and that's what I have here.
yeah, mine shows, like you're saying, Paul, on yours, mine, it's off by a couple $1,000.
Yeah.
It's
So
million
yours
three
is
sixty-three.
yours is 1,314,000, ours is 1,316,977.
77.
Okay, I just changed the salaries for the 20, when I changed this
That's for 24 though, correct?
2850 here. I don't know, I didn't change,
It changes for 24. and it's
that was
23.
22. And we went from 22 to 25.
Yeah, the only thing we're missing is what the final salary was with Sunny. Not the starting salary, but her finish, wherever she finished for the year. We need to adjust that 95 and see what that number actually is.
We come back to Renee, so we should put that at 32, 39.
So
And I'm sorry, Jim, you were talking away from me. What were you saying?
What I was saying is the same thing that was mentioned, that we don't know what Sunny's final salary was. We only know what her starting salary was. So that 95 is not where Sunny left. That's where she started a year ago.
That's what it was when she left. Right?
Can we get documentation on that to know exactly?
Well, that's a proposed, like how much it's gonna be for the next year. That's not where we're at this year.
Well, I would like to know where we're at, so we have an idea of where we're looking, because that's like a year and a half old for where that is.
Well,
Cause she ended up getting the cost of living plus, which is another 8.5% that she got on top of the other. And I don't know, on top of the 95, just working this last year. Cause everybody got the cost of living, the COA, and also got
He
the
was entered in as
3.5%.
95.
She also got, that 8.5%, cause she took the 3.5% on top of the 5. What she did, okay, so.
so in your list of your posting for field administrator, you gave a range. What was that range?
Yeah, then Jim,
I would have to, I don't have it in front of me here. But I can get it
It's 95 mid-range,
for
what you're putting in the posting,
the city administrator.
Yep. because it's in mid-range, that's probably the best place versus the high end.
Yeah, cause shoot, I don't have that folder in front of me, actually.
You know, it's all based on experience, and I think you had a minimum of 2 years' experience, so.
I don't have it on here. Yeah, I have it in my other binder. I'd have to check, cause I thought it went to one. I thought it was, I thought we went from like 85 to 103 or something like
Yeah, because
that.
if you look right now, if you put in that 8.5% that she took for just, COLA plus the 3.5% that was in there, you're looking at 103,000.
Yeah,
It should be for a base off of that, not 95.
I think we did that as the very top end, depending on experience. I thought it was like 102 or something.
But I'm just saying for
Yeah.
what Sunny's was,
Yeah.
okay, so that's.
I think what she, if there was a raise too, it was. I think it was back to 0.8 of that raise too, because you didn't have any benefits.
No, but I'm just saying, if you look at what the total dollar was, that's where she took the 8.5%. The 5 plus the 3.5, which is 8.5.
Then times 0.8. Because she didn't have health benefits.
Right.
And so
We'll leave it
then,
at 95 and. So the range is 84, 364 to 105. So this is a little bit on the higher side, so. Above
what
minimum,
was it 84?
84 something to 105.
Okay, so I knew it was one something.
Yeah.
Depending on their years of experience.
Let's leave it for that right now. Oh, another question, go ahead.
Yeah, it just clarified that if we put Renee's at the same rate, well, I'm putting 6.5, and I think the others, you know, if you round up, they're at 6.5. So that would bring Renee's to 32.26 proposed instead of 34.39.
So it's not a direct $2 off. I had 32.39, I took the $2 off. Oh, no, I can't do that, no.
No, it's
So it's,
30, so if you take 30.29
yes, please,
times 6.5%, that gives you, it brings you to 32.26 per hour,
06,
32.26.
got it, thank you. Okay, let's go over. Dropped it just slightly to 1.309, so. So the last chart before we go back is just a comparison of departments. So what we have is by department numbers, and these are all linked back to the big spreadsheet. This is a sheet I added just to compare. This is our revenues. Here's our expenditures. But here's by department. 23's column D, and here's the changes. So for the most part, they go back and forth with each other. There's increases on different areas, which you might expect just because everything is increasing, but we do see some areas that have a bigger increase than what I would say is normal. That's highlighted with this brown color. Looks like yellow up there. And
Parentheses, is that a negative number?
what's that?
The parentheses, is that a negative number?
Yes, it's a negative. It went down. And some of these negatives are because of these salaries. That gets back to the salary spreadsheet where she went and put percentages on each of the departments that they actually put money in or work in. And so that's why some of them are down, but the others are up a little bit. So
Help me understand.
it's just a much better way of doing it, and I appreciate the time she took to do that.
So help me understand. Cause I see like deputy clerk is down 35. I think that's a lot, isn't it?
Right, because she's spread out. She may be up in P and Z, or she may be in water and sewer. They get kind of spread out. But these salaries doesn't include water and sewer. That's why you see these changes in salaries and because that 36,000 is spread differently over rest of these departments. So if we go back to the salary spreadsheet and look at Renee. The admin is. It's at 0.2, that's 20%. Finance is 20%. 10% parks and trails. Minutes, planning and zoning is 20%, permits, all that stuff. And then over in water, here she does the utility and the sewer. So that's what her salary is spread out amongst all the departments. So when you look at the department comparisons, that's why I see some negatives and some increases.
So we're saying the expense to all the departments for that position, for instance, is 21,000 and some change. Is that what we're saying?
For deputy clerk often.
Deputy clerk,
Yeah.
yeah,
So if you look under 2024,
right,
it's 21,000 and some change, right?
For the clerk, for the
For the
clerk.
deputy clerk.
For the clerk portion of the position,
So-
right?
Oh, mine says 21, and it probably changed because you
Changed,
changed the
yeah.
numbers, but. That number under 2024, are we saying that that's the expenses that are expensed to those different areas? Okay,
We tried to save money off of doing that by
Yeah,
taxes.
I get it.
How we were doing it.
so if I go back to the big spreadsheet and come back up here and look at,
because I know they were allocated.
here's. Deputy clerk, so this is salary. Her salary is 20% of the salary spread in line 21, which is on the spreadsheet. So that's where that 20,000 comes up. Go back here to there's that 2513. For deputy clerk, so. So, continuing on, I guess the question is, do we go through all these departments or just hit these high ones and explain why that increase is in those planning and zoning, fire, first responders, and parks and rec? See the contract. And then we have some comments over here on the side that kind of explain the reasons for those changes.
There were a couple things that I was looking at too, to make sure that we have enough in here for our budget for the first part of the year to be able to take care of Shirley and what she's got for her expenses. That we're not gonna be paying a full-time administrator, but there could be some other expenses for hotels and that, to make sure that it's in there for you to be covered with that. So that was a thought that I had off of that. And I was also, I think it's just fair for the new administrator, whoever that might be coming in, that we might take a look at doing a forensic audit, just to make sure all the books are done and correct, so that they're not getting stuck in something that might have happened in the past. That everything is clean when they get started. I just think it's a good way to bring somebody in, and it protects them.
So we'll have our auditing service starting in April. May,
Yeah, the audit
June,
was
yeah.
in April.
But yeah, I think that's different than a forensic audit too, to take a look at what was going on in the past, just so that we've got a clean record of what's going on with the books.
I agree, because then it's just level set.
I just think it's fair for the new person that's coming in. It just gives them
Reset.
yeah.
We got a question
You're
here.
gonna do that when Geraldine left.
We did, but we did ask.
Doesn't matter who's leaving, it's time to do it.
Well, I think it was the same thing. She left. She left just before auditing services started. She left in spring or March.
But I remember I did ask for an audit, and the answer to me was, well, we already have auditors, and our books get audited every month by our financial service or
Bank
the accounting.
reconciliation, yeah.
Yeah, but I think this is different, and I agree, and that's what I was getting at when Geraldine left. because I think it's only fair to the person coming in that we level set and, you know, it's a stamp. That's where they're starting, because if there is something wrong, it's not on the new person. You know, and I think it's a good practice.
Well, the accounting software that we use is antiquated. That's why we have funding to get new software too, so it sounds pretty simple to do that. But there is it's a lot of effort to go in and do that. A lot of carryovers with
And I
bills
think,
and invoices, and now if you're looking for bank reconciliation, which we do, so I think that's our understanding with Smith and Schaefer. That's handled month to month, so
Yeah,
if there is anything that needs to be caught, it should be caught those bank reconciliations.
well, that's on current that there is. I think we need to take a look back. And so we've got everything clean to where it is. I think it's just fair for the new administrator to come in. And Shirley, maybe you might have a comment on that
Let me
too.
ask Shirley, what's your opinion?
Do you
You've been
know,
in and out of these
yeah,
cities.
we had some issues in one of the cities that I worked with, and so the auditors that we usually work with just gave like reviewed the past 6 months and came in and did a short audit. It wasn't real expensive, but it kind of cleared everything up. I think that, you know, it's entirely up to your city. If there's just this one issue that you're worried about, then I think that's what you have them look at. But if you want all of the cash counted and accrued, you know, actual come in for an audit, it might be costly. I'm not sure what your audits cost in the past. Do you have any idea what they are?
They run
Renee?
18 to 23,000.
Probably. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, let's look at our spreadsheet.
Is our current auditor in this legal services and professional services line? Is that what's in there?
Be in the audit.
Line
accounting and
4,
auditing services.
41,600, what's all included in that?
Legal services and professional services. I think that's more your city attorney. And probably your auditor is in there. I don't know where else he would be. It's under financial.
Line 162 there.
Very welcome, right, go ahead.
What is it, Renee?
Line 162, go up a little bit, I'm sorry.
Well, there is an auditing service. so-
Yeah, let's go back down.
Oh,
Fast meter.
well, there it is, okay.
But that's all their bank reconciliation and audit.
Well, we spent
So why are we predicting that up
39.
50%? Why are we predicting the bottom line on that up 50%? We're predicting it to go to 91,000 when it's at 60,000 this year.
So there's, if you look at the auditing services, line 154 on your spreadsheet. We budgeted 30, and year to date, this is through the end of October, and we still have 2 months left on
Because we have a
33.9.
lot of legal services coming up with the sewer and water project, probably. I don't like it's in there, but.
I would think a lot of that stuff it should be kind of figured out already, but I would think.
37.5, so.
Yeah.
So if there's nothing in, so if we do this and unless there's something specific you want to look at, then we just do a quick
I don't know if a
5,
quick
6 month review or whatever.
I think that we should maybe go back maybe a year or 2 years to take a look and see what was on there, you know, and even clean up what might have been there during that time with Geraldine too, to handle that part, because we never did
Yeah, and
that.
those audits are okay.
Well, they didn't
The
go
audits are
do a
okay,
forensic
so-
audit, they just did, you know, a book audit, which there's a little bit of a difference between the two.
I think
Well, the looking's going through the files.
Can you tell me, Olmsted County Services, do they do like our assessing? Do they charge you for assessing? I think that's what the difference is here, because you didn't schedule over there. Because under professional services, if you go to that page, let's see,
Line
4 of
160.
11. there's 20,328 for Olmsted County Services that I didn't.
What number?
We'd have,
160.
we'd have to go back and look at
Yep.
a year to date through October, what
Mhm.
the revenue and expenditures is.
That's one.
Yeah, because we didn't have a budget for that at all on line 160. And it came out to be 18,000.
Well, it says actual that you spent 18,000 there,
Yeah.
18,480, but other years you didn't have, so I'm not sure what.
So there
Olmsted
must be
County
some services that, and this is one of those, she could have added a line. Yeah, I just don't know.
Mhm. That's kind of.
Sometimes you either,
If she split it off of something else, we still would expect it to be up 50%.
I know we spent a lot of money reporting documents with all of our easements. We had 500, no, 500. Couple hundred easements, so.
Who does your assessing work here in your city?
She was asking a question, I don't think you heard.
It'd be Homestead.
Which one?
Homestead County should be doing
Olmsted
most of
County,
it.
okay, so that's probably what that is. Thank you.
In terms of the audit, I just think it would be a good practice.
I think it'd be very practical to
Different.
do that.
Yeah, someone different than who currently does
Mhm.
the accounting for a different set of eyes. And I guess one thing that comes to mind is, and I don't know if it was even found, where the fire department had like 100,000 said was missing. I don't know if that was found in a different account or not, and I know that juggled, I think it was 100, wasn't it?
A little bit over that, so, but yeah,
Yeah. It was higher, and, okay,
it's 100, and what was it,
So-
115 or
27.
127?
okay. So, and I mean, for things like, for those types of reasons, I think it is good to level set before we bring a new person in. So so things are straight and it's not on the new person if something is found.
I said
That's
something a
mine.
little bit different here, what you're asking for. So in one way, you're asking for, somebody to look at the books. But it sounds like you're more concerned, I mean, this is fine if you want to look at the capital improvement fund. If that's where the real question's at, because I'm in the process of working with Mr. Schaefer now,
I mean, it's
come
like.
up with that figure.
It's just, I mean, there was always a question that seems to be popping up and again, it came back with what was going on with fire on, where it was and what's going on. I know that looking also at the water, which is, I think, the 600 fund, is that right, Kane? Is that what your fund is for water? You know, to know what's really there and what got put in instead of putting everything in the 100 fund, but I think just to clean it up and have somebody take a look at it would make a lot of sense, you know?
My thought, but I just think it's a good practice.
I think it's
What the
good
water
practice.
fund is what Renee's doing now.
Well, I know that there was a question that Kane had,
That's what
what was really in the 600 fund.
You work with the road water fund at all then, or is that just all Sunny thing?
Well, I'm the one that does most of the billing out of it.
Yeah.
Cause I know we were looking at pulling money out of the 600 fund for what we were looking at for Glenn's. For making a difference on the water and the pipe at Glenn's. That we were taking out 15,000 or whatever that there was.
Project money.
But it was, came back out of what the reference was to go back to the 600 fund. That there's money there, and so I don't know what's in that 600 fund.
Well, the 600
companies-
fund is an enterprise fund, which should fund itself. It's not really meant to make money to fund other stuff. That's supposed to support itself.
I know we were looking at taking the money out of that for that particular
Oh, what
part
you're
of
talking
it.
about is a credit from the escrow.
Well, it
all the
was something,
fees
but I
and
just know the 600 fund came up, and it's like, I didn't even know we had a 600 fund, okay, those are the things that. I would like to know what's really floating around, what's really there.
The Whackensack is one of our funds, it's 410. It's over on the water fund, it's one of our enterprise funds. So we have a Whackensack fund, that's where all our building permits, water permits, now the sewer availability charges go into. And so that's where, we don't have a SAC sewer fund. And we will have in 6 months, but we've used that to collect building fees, for water funds to commission water, but that's all separate funds and we can get a better explanation from Joe about the 17,000 credit. That's what they use for that. If I'm using it correctly, I know there is some discussions about working out a deal so that some of the work is done by this Glen Coach contractor is paying for having the water installed too. But that hasn't happened yet.
No, I'm just, again, I was just looking at these funds and it came up and I wasn't even aware that there was a 600 fund. That was there and yet we were looking at taking money from that. That's why I just think it, to have
So
a
you're-
forensic audit might be good. Okay.
So you're asking something different than the WAC and what we're talking about here then.
All I know is the discussions that took place when we were talking about that with the monies that were going on. And
So
since
that
I
would-
didn't know, I just listened to what was said,
Okay.
so.
Mayor,
Okay, anything else?
can I just,
Yes.
this, I think it's always important that city councils understand their bookkeeping system. And the 101 fund is supported by your tax dollar. The 601 funds are enterprise funds and they have to be in the black at all times. And so lots of times that's when your city staff will come to you and say, we're running in the red in the 601, so you have to increase water and sewer rates. That's how that gets. And I think a lot of cities, I'm not recorded here, right? I think a lot of cities sometimes, get very generous about charging a lot of things to those 601 funds, like, all the wages from your office staff gets divided up because they're doing work for that water and sewer fund. But a lot of cities will take 75% of maintenance fees, maintenance costs from the maintenance department and put it in there. And so that's one fund that the city can always increase and the taxpayer doesn't really know it other than they're getting their water increase. And so it's really important that the city council does understand that 601 is self-supporting. It is there to help other funds, but sometimes that gets somewhat up.
So you're right, and
Mhm.
so I don't think we haven't. In August, we talked about our raise piece, I think.
No, and I don't think.
3% because we want to make sure we stay in the black for PFA reasons.
That's right.
So they want to make sure that we're
Mhm.
getting their money paid, so for the loans that we borrowed from them, so.
But because those funds are self-sufficient or self-supporting, it doesn't get discussed a lot, and a lot of times councils are confused about what that 601 enterprise fund is. So,
I don't know what the correct term is, other than get back to your initial discussion or comment here of discussion is whether or not we need to audit, or is there another terminology for what you're asking our auditors to do?
I don't know.
I'd say it's water.
Yeah, I'd say it's.
And I think some of these were just some examples. Like the fire truck was just an example. I think just to look at everything, make sure things are the way they should be. And again, the fire department thing was just an example, but things like that, make sure that everything is where it should be and not lost, not hidden under other things, but everything is there and accounted for is my thought. And to me, I would think it would be a good practice.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a lot of discussion about the contributions that have come in from the fire department, where they went, how they were spent. So one thought is that we go back to our revenues. One thought is to look at revenues and add 2 lines for revenue, first responders donations and fire department donations. It's not on your sheet. It's in my marked up copy if we consider something to do that. The challenge we have is from an accounting standpoint. And I'm not very good at explaining it, but basically within our accounting software, everything comes into a general ledger number. And in some cases, it's very difficult and takes a lot of time to fully take that donation and put it in the right category and be able to track it. And that's just a inherent quality of our accounting software.
Yeah, I'm looking
But
here.
that is something I've been, as again, I'm repeating myself, the guy at Smith and Schaefer is looking at, because we want to look at what those contributions are to date or what the current status is, because they have been using the pay stuff, we know that.
I'm looking here at line number 32. Which is just a general, just says donations, and there was for some reason a budget for donations of 10,416 last year in the 23, and of course that was zero, but how did we get 10,416 that's there for a budget for donation?
We're budgeting what people are giving us.
I'm asking the question, I'm looking at line 32, that's all I'm looking at. Now, what was down there? You know, in 2022, and that one, we had budgeted 8,000 for donations and we received 19,766.
Is that gold rush stuff? Is that?
I don't know, I'm just saying, it's.
Somebody should know where that money came from, I guess.
Can't answer that.
Oh, running a report, I have.
So, we need to move on here, so let's,
Anyway. I think that makes sense to be able to put those line items in. Rather than for what you were talking about.
I'm sorry.
I think that makes sense to put those two line items in. To be able to identify what it is for fire and also to identify it for first responders, so we have those two.
Maybe if I can, reimbursements. We do get reimbursed
Make a note of that.
from, for fire training.
Okay, what's that?
No, Johan was saying something.
So maybe, we have one for donations, I think you said, and maybe we have one for reimbursements.
I think we've got reimbursement.
We have
Yeah, reimbursements, we have grants. Regular reimbursements that there are. Under line 40 and 41.
The fire department's got their own donation line in line 35. The one that Jim talked about is on line 30.
Oh, there you go, okay, but it's at zero, there's been nothing, yeah, okay, you already got that one in there, you're right.
It'd be great for reimbursement, fire department, or reimbursement first responders.
That's what it is, it's even on the wrong line, so it'd be. Question.
We could look at what you're talking about is revenue and disbursement. We do that with planning and zoning with reimbursement on engineering fees. That goes in that same line as on the expenditures. It comes in as revenue, but then it's spent towards that line item description too. So I'm not an accountant. I don't know if that works, how it works. We can talk to our auditors or accountants to see if that's possible.
Yeah, I thought it
In
might
the
have,
past, we relied on the resolutions that come to us from the first relief or fire relief or few from first responders, and most of them come from the fire relief. And we could write the resolutions much clearer. Now we just, in some cases, we just say equipment fund or fire, but we should identify it by an account number, not a description, because there's been a lot of discrepancy about what the description says. we will touch base with our auditing company and just have them giving us an idea of your request to look at doing a spot check or whatever you want to call it for, see whatever the proper term is, what they would do, how much it would cost versus waiting for the audit, the normal yearly audit.
Another
All
question,
right,
line 15. Where is that revenue? The $55,719, is that money coming in or is that revenue coming in or what?
that's money coming in, so
Where's that coming from? The state?
from the
money?
state, yeah,
Do we have to match that or what's
no, that's for us to use. So it just comes into the general fund, so that line 15 is, it's a one-time revenue, the legislators, it's called a small city assistance. I put it in there, that was our CARES Act the revenue that we received several years ago. It's a
Several years-
one-time deal,
several years ago we get that?
legislature,
The small cities assist though,
Yeah.
see the CARES Act, he's correct about that, that was previous years, you had it titled there, but that small city assistance, you are going to get that check. Or next year, right? That's that small cities
yes, it's just, yes. sometime
gave
after the
every
first
city
year.
a larger amount than what they've ever had before. But it's going to be just one time.
The 55 is a one-time, we've never received it before,
Mhm.
and if you go down to line 18,
That's your
the local
LGD.
government aid, typically it's 84,000. Last year, 2 years ago, it was 93,000, but the legislators changed the formula and dropped it to 84,000 for 2023. But this year, because of the surplus, so another again, one time, they've added additional dollars, so it's 143,000
And they tacked another 55,000 on.
plus the 55.
Yeah. Oh, which is nice. I mean, we'll take it. Absolutely.
Yeah, well.
And what line was that?
That'd be
That-
a-
15 and 18, both of those.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, so any other line items you want to look at other than what we talked about here, looking at our highlighted ones on this last sheet here?
One of my questions about that CARES Act money, that have strings tied to it, what we specifically have to use it for? Line 15.
Small city or whatever. it
I
is.
just wanna know if it has to be used for anything in
What is that?
specific.
No, I'm not aware of anything. It's wide open.
There is some more money that's going to be given for public safety. That too, but I think, what did you say that was today when we talked about that? 79?
79,000.
That has to either go to public safety, yes, or it could
Or
be some
equipment, I think,
public
too.
works, or it. could
Had to be for apparatus
No,
is
not
what
public
Joe
works,
had
it could go
explained.
fire.
Had to be used for apparatus stuff is what.
There's 9 different categories you can use for this.
Public safety, so it's fire and police, but you don't have your own police, so that would be on. Okay.
Anything else in the spreadsheet that caught your eye versus what we're going to highlighted?
Yeah, I would love to know what's going on with the township on first responders and what they're gonna accept for an increase. I mean, that's,
Ongoing, we're, Chris Inman has asked, city staff to look at some historical data to share with the townships, and that's what we're doing now.
okay. I know that, catching also with some of the other townships that there are, cities that are giving that service, because I know that Pine Island had continued to go up every year. And costs that they were associating with that, and we were pretty flat for probably about the last 5 years, I think, without any increases at all. but just to take a look and see what it is for local surrounding areas. So we make sure that we're competitive.
I'm sure Chris is looking at you.
Okay.
I'm assuming he is.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's just go to planning and zoning. On page 4. To kind of explain why that increase. Line 153 and 163. Still at 4. Um. So line 164, that's, we picked up this year. Commission members, a fee for attending meetings. Salary, health benefits, para. Payroll. Planning services, it's a combination of. Contract with WSB to look at our planning codes. 150 to organize those, make them easier to read. I don't think we've got the contract yet from them, have we?
I have a workup, yeah.
Yeah, there's a contract that's there. I think that Renee has.
And then Stantec Planning Services. Right now, it's at through the month of October, it's 15. So that's why we just kind of budgeted 30. We just think there's
What is
more
our,
activity next year.
what is our actual fiscal year? Is it July 1st through June 30th?
No.
Number 30.
January, December, calendar year. Yeah. Engineering fees. Are creeping up.
Yeah, actual versus almost double for what we had budgeted last year for actual this year. On the engineering fees. Cause we had 5,000, it's 10,952 right now.
You said attorney's fees, but I don't see it. I don't see the line up there.
Legal.
Attorney fees.
I didn't say attorney.
No.
Oh, the
I
Riley.
said engineering. Cause that's double for what our budget is.
There's some fees in there, I think, probably from Stantec on the engineering side versus the planning side.
How much of that should actually go towards zoning instead of the planning part of it? Cause I see you got planning and zoning and then you got planning up there, but.
And the 63,000 for the WSB is a 1-year project. So. Oh. All right. Anything else? Want to discuss? Down to, fire department, there's a nice description with each increase request. Currently, we're at 7,000. And 0 because the payout is here in December. So they did some research. On salaries, where we stand versus the different cities and, any questions there? I think this is,
Not on the wage. I do have a question on the insurance.
we'll get down to those.
Well,
We'll go down through the list. I just want to kind of start at the top here and just kind of go through, but we'll cover all the line items.
The one comment that I'd make, I think this is good. Based on equity, you know, because we're looking at equity across the board. You know, we're not only for city employees, we're looking at fire, first responders as well. So I think this is a good thing.
I know some of our earlier discussions at a budget workshop, I think it would have been nice, it could have been a 2-year step, but I'm okay with this as well, so. It's not, you know, it's a $10,000 increase, so if you split that. You go to 12,000 this year and 17 next year, but
I think it's
I'm okay
better
with
just,
salaries, that looks respectable.
I think it needs to be balanced where we've got it, so we've got a baseline now, because it hasn't been done for so many years.
I wouldn't expect this increase again next year.
No, but I'm just saying, I think it's good for us to be there and now stay on top of it as we look at it every year forward.
Payroll taxes. There's a comment add there from. Should not be here. Maybe that's down in the bottom or something.
Both of those. For 191 and 192.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
The comment is there because I think that was used as a line item when you get our 2% money from the state. You receive it, we give you an invoice saying to give it to us, and then you give it to us for our relief. So it's like an in and out. And so we didn't think that really should it be a budget line item because it's
In and out.
in and out. You receive it.
Good,
and
thank
then
you.
give it to us.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
That would give
why
you the
it's true.
record by being in there, though, right?
Yeah, so you're still gonna have it in there whether or not you budget for it, but it's still gonna have to have a line item. They're not gonna be able to take it, delete it.
Another thing with that though is it's not fire department, fire relief, which is a separate entity, not a city entity.
Right, if there's money coming from the state, it probably should show it, a line in and a line back out.
Yeah,
Should still show it, so.
I'm just saying we don't need to put a budget number in there, but we still need the line item to show where it came in and where it went back out, so we have a record of it.
Yeah, you don't want somebody going, where'd all that money come from? No record of it. You know, after X number of years,
Mhm.
put your little hot water.
So a little bit further down, you see some, but these are all pretty much, these are the current items. Line 195. They've added more people, so they need more sets. And they get reimbursed as well, except for,
How many people are on the fire department right now?
22.
How many?
22.
so 195 to 27, but this. You get reimbursed for all of these? Is that right?
We are working on getting reimbursed for those.
So yes, men, we can get money if the people complete the training and the medical assessment. Then we get everything reimbursed, helmet, gear, boots, you know, everything. But we gotta pay for it up front and then get reimbursed. And so we've had multiple already. But again, this is that hard, is that we gotta pay for it, so this shows that we paid for it, but then you don't see that it actually was reimbursed by the state.
So when the money comes back to us, where does it go to?
It goes on the
Question.
fire
Yeah.
state aid,
It should be on another line.
fire state aid usually.
Fire state
Should be
aid?
on another line. Sure, it's there.
Well, there would, well, okay.
Same thing with.
So Renee
training.
says the fire state aid is where it goes back into. When it comes back to us? No?
It'd be a reimbursement. It'd be a
The
reimbursement
city or to the fire department?
The city.
to the
city.
city, because
The
if
city.
you look at the fire department 42,200 fund. We don't have revenue,
Right,
those are all expenditures. So when we get money back from the state for training or turnout gear, that goes into your first page where it says
fire donation,
reimbursements.
grants.
It goes under state.
Did not go under state aid.
Fire state aid is a one-time 2% money from the
that
state
we get each year. Which is totally different
completely.
than training and gear reimbursements.
What's, now it's 2% money, but it's 2% of what?
So that, the quick answer is the insurance agencies in Minnesota have a surcharge that you pay on your car insurance, property insurance, and then each year they give that money, they redistribute it. So we call it the 2% because it's like a 2% surcharge, but it's based on population.
Okay, I'm just curious where they come up with that.
So should it really come back into fire state aids?
Well, that's what I'm wondering is the,
Yeah, shouldn't it be like a fire department reimbursement or state,
But it's
fire
back to
department
the-
state reimbursement?
But the city's paying up front, so it's gotta come back to the city, not somehow.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, though, I mean, wherever it comes to, maybe the account,
so shouldn't that never be, instead of 14, it should be 41,000? That 27,000 comes back,
Two separate things we're talking about,
Yep.
Mhm.
two different,
Oh, yeah,
completely different
well,
buckets.
we're talking about where the 27,000 comes back to the city as, and where do we put it in?
That the,
Because we don't have a revenue,
it would be somewhere like reimbursements, Ryland, like number 40. Line 40 reimbursement,
it's empty right now.
or you need to create a line that says fire department reimbursements, either training, fire gear, anything that the 42,200 fund pays out and then applies for the refund or the reimbursement goes back to the city.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, so it's more clear, really, what is that?
Well, the 42,200 fund should actually have its own reimbursement line.
So if you go through the fire department, first responders, there may be other reimbursements too.
So fire,
Fire for sure.
for fire, it's training and this turnout gear one. For first responders, we do get some Southeast EMS reimbursements. We just have one right now. We haven't even given the check yet. That would be like a reimbursement for some training. But yeah, if you had a
That's just
generic
what we're doing.
reimbursement for fire and reimbursement, you could see, again, this is going out and here we get some money back.
Are they all from that 4,200? Or based on that 4,200 fund?
When we get like state aid money, it comes from the state.
Correct.
And then that check is made out directly to the city of Orinoco. And so we then receipt it because we can't just give that check to the fire department.
Right.
Then we bring it back to the city council, or I'm assuming this is how it's done. And then a check is issued to the,
Yeah, we actually submit a receipt, an
That's right.
invoice saying,
Mhm.
please give us this amount. So it
Right.
comes into you, then we get it into our relief fund, which then goes into our special fund for pensions. But that's totally different. That's a one-time yearly thing.
Right.
These may or may not be available each year, the reimbursements.
But the 2% money is.
Yes.
Yeah. Did we solve anything?
Yeah, except I don't know why it doesn't want to go fill this cell. What am I doing wrong?
Maybe there's somebody already in it.
Blank there, but when I do it here.
think you have to highlight cell D to get it into there.
There you go, okay, well, I'll work on that. So, right now we have 27,000. Line item we just talked about. We'll come back here in a second as we go through these. That's train, that's reimbursable. 1,000. 12,000, just more people, I guess.
Is that 100% reimbursed after that for the training? No?
Again, it's categories, you know, that we can apply, so most everything, so this year we had about $6,000 that we could get reimbursed, and we got $6,000 back, but our budget was a little higher because some things are not reimbursed, but most are.
But here's their training for 12,000, but, some reimbursement, but not all of it, I take it.
Yeah, this year, we now have, with 4,000. We got a little less this year from the state. That we'll get back, just because every year it's a different allocation per firefighter. We have more firefighters, but it was less per firefighter.
And you always work or not?
Oh, is your switch flipped on there? Now it is.
Yes, they do work. Also, in this line item,
Sorry about that.
Every 2 years,
Thanks, Paul. Okay,
we do a research for CPR and CPR first aid, or CPR AED. So that is, we're on the every other year. So 2024 is where we'll be paying for all 23 to get trained in CPR. So that's an added cost this year. That won't be there next year, but it'll be here 2026.
so do we think that's about 4,000 then? Reimbursement or 3,000?
I can't remember what that said. Yep. Training costs are going up. We do some ourselves. We down at the Southeast Training Center a lot. We partner with Rochester Fire. They've taught a couple of our training sessions, a couple months this year. We use the Southeast Training Center because it's free to use, and all we have to pay for our supplies. So it's just water. Last time we did a live burn down there was in October, and it cost us $75. Pretty good value. When we have Riverland come in, when I can't teach the class or don't feel comfortable, or we are not partnering with Rochester Fire, Riverland will come in and they'll bring props, they'll bring people, instructors, and that's really where you'll see a lot of our cost, because that's the cost of having training come in.
Like the big natural gas training we did.
Yep.
That was probably a couple grand with materials and training,
Mhm.
just one
Well,
night.
you guys burned a lot of gas that weekend.
$500 worth of gas.
Quite the flare going
training.
over there.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Didn't know you could open the meter up, did you?
We're not sure if it's gonna be more than 4,000 or less than 4,000.
So our reimbursement will be about $4,000.
I can request up to $4,000 back,
Okay, we'll go with
but
that.
we usually spend more.
Property insurance, automobile insurance.
Well, here's where I'm going with this. You know, I see the fire department's at 14 grand in insurance to start with. And tallying up everybody's insurance for this, all of the departments, you got 33.5 in insurance. Is there a way we can bond instead of paying for insurance? To cover that?
All our insurance comes through LCMI, LMCIT,
Yeah.
and the prices are coming down.
Do they do a bond?
There's some notifications on LMC that the premiums are going down some percent, but not very
I
much.
know my homeowners didn't, so
I know.
I don't expect this to be continued at a downward spiral. That's a one-time deal that's going down. I'm just curious, if there's a way we can bond for it, you know. You certainly could in your automotive insurance, your umbrella. You know, could you do a
Or
$1
insurance,
million, $2
yeah.
million bond for the big stuff?
Yeah, the big stuff is work comp. Work comp is probably your biggest one.
I understand that you're not gonna be
All of
able,
our
you're not gonna be able to
property-
bond for that.
Comes through LMC, so. The line 206, or line, yeah. So this equipment, there's. Increase people, a little more money that.
That's property insurance, that's only for the fire department, correct?
Yeah.
Donation expense, I don't think that one's been used very much at all. Well, it was back in 22. So. The community outreach, that's one, these are all new items that are highlighted yellow. We bought those in the past.
This year we used, just, we want $998 some odd cents for the purchase of 28 combination smoke CO detectors to give out to community members who need them.
So yes, we spent, but we never had the itemization of what we spent. And so with all the meetings that we had this year, we decided to create these new categories so that we would have more visibility for these major areas that we're spending.
Mhm.
So we were spending the money, but you had no visibility other than general fund or, general equipment. Now you can actually see where that's going.
Other community outreach that we continue to do, we have Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts come into the fire hall. They look through the trucks, they make their own, little first aid kits, you know. Right now, we're paying for that out of other funds that we have, but we thought it was a good idea, again, to have it spelled out, so we know how much we have. And, you know, we can see how much we use.
Okay, next up, the apparel, the $7,300. I've got some sheets at home. So right now in 2023. Between the fire department, first responders and fire relief is over $11,000. That went towards shirts, jackets. T-shirts. 5,500 of that was for Gold Rush t-shirts. So. Looking back, probably been a while since you purchased Gold Rush t-shirts.
And
Did you sell
agreed
those in too?
And we agreed this summer at our meetings that in the future, that money we would be using relief funds for the Gold Rush shirts.
Okay, all right.
And this is purely outfitting people with a jacket, with ski cap, that type of, so this is not Gold Rush. No.
No. I went off on the Gold Rush t-shirts, but the 7,500 is comparing to $6,000 this year, so it just seems like a lot of clothes, a lot of t-shirts, a lot of jackets, repeats.
So we had all the new members that came on, like the first responders needed those yellow safety jackets were like 150, 135, 175 piece. Right, so almost 200 just for a jacket. You
So how
know,
many new people came on? I know there's a lot of them.
Yeah, this year, in the past 2 years, the first responders went from 8 to 25. Yeah, fire fluctuates, but
yeah,
we're up.
usually 16 to 17, now we're, like I said, at 22, 23. Good problems.
What you might think it's just t-shirts or whatever, but it's kind of like what we're trying, not that we're full-time, but it would be, it's great when somebody walks into your house. And you can, when you're having a medical emergency or having a fire or something like that, and you can identify them based off what they're wearing. So we call them duty shirts or duty jackets.
Oh, what?
Duty shirts, you know, not that we're on duty, but we kind of are. So we're recognizable when we go in.
And you're building your team.
We are building our team as well.
That's not an every year expense, so is it? It's 7,500.
So we have been buying gear, but we never again had a breakout. So this year, starting the previous year is when we actually created a category to actually start again tracking it. You know, I previously, I had just said, hey, could you give me 100 ahead? And, oh, okay, we just started doing it. And that was when we had lower numbers. So yes, we have been buying the things. You just didn't see it broke out now. So some of this is visibility. You were paying for some of these things with less members and now you're seeing the visibility with more members. So the numbers are kind of amplified.
We have found a shop in town in Rochester called A to Z Embroidery, and they have been doing past year plus now, they've been doing our year apparel, giving us discounts, not really volume discounts, just discounts because we're fire and first response. So we do check that occasionally and they are consistently under market cost, so.
You just, maybe it's sticker shock, it just seems. You know, I can appreciate the jacket, the sweatshirt. That's okay, I just want to make sure that when. I guess where I'm coming from is we go through such a big increase, it's over 100% increase in the fire department fund, that we need to have a good rationale for our residents to say, why is our property taxes going up 40% or whatever the case may be? Because that's a legit, it's going for all of us, it's going up. House values are going up as well, but that's nice, but that's taxes go along with that, so. But let's look at this recruitment, $1,500. Because these are duplicated in a lot of cases between the fire department and the first responders. So in line 213. 1,500 fire banners, and there's 1,500 also on the first responders, $1,500. So is that something that can be worked together, or?
We do work it together. We were very extremely successful this last year with getting first responders. Now we're battling that back a little bit. But we still need firefighters. I mean, we could use 6 more for sure. It is in tandem, but it's right. It does separate out as well.
Is it community outreach and recruitment kind of on the same line? I see it's 2 separate lines.
Well, they kind of work, you know,
They go hand in hand, but
they kind of do. It's what we have been finding is our best recruitment tools are not just online and ads online, but it's actually bringing the community into the fight hall. That's where we get to talk to kids and we get to talk to moms and dads and we say, hey, wouldn't it be great if mom and dad would drive a fire truck? And that's how our recruitment has increased over the past few years. You have to work with the different age groups, the different generations. You know, this so far.
chili feet would take that.
You know, or pancake beans or something like that, but you know, that's what we have been finding. That has been working.
And, you know, they get a great turnout from the community anytime they have a good event going on over there at the fire hall, and it's nice. It kind of brings everybody in the community together. You know, so I think it's been very effective.
Between line 213 and line 243. There's 1,500 in each line. Is that something that we can reduce? For both recruitment efforts. There's a lot of coming out. I mean, I'm sure you have, or do you have many people that are fire department, but not first responders?
Currently, our 22 firefighters and 8 that are on first responders.
Or I should say, how many first responders are not in the first fire department?
You're already now.
18.
18, okay.
17. Yeah, we really try to encourage people to do both, but there's a lot of people that just want to do medical, and we have some fire people that just want to do blood.
And that's a lot of commitment from both sides of it. Every Monday of the month.
Next item is retention. 2,500. Have you itemized those to come up with that figure, or they just fall apart?
We thought about $100 per person. The retention part is also something that we are right now pulling out of other funds. So we're, this is again for visibility. Keeping people longer than a couple of years is a big deal. We fork out a lot of money in training. Continue to fork out money for them to train. $4,500 per head per year, right? I mean, there's a lot of outlay that we have, and to keep people on is a big deal. We also have a very young squad right now.
When, you talk about trying to doing things like this to keep them on. What are the reasons that they're leaving? That you have people, just curiosity. Some reason they're leaving.
You name it. I mean, volunteerism. I mean, you're competing with the kids in school events, when you're gone, the spouse is around. Kids are in more things, so that we see a lot of, kids drawn, and then just, life, getting busy at work, and then I only have so many hours, so
Some move.
we get some move. Last few that we've lost have just been.
Something else is the newest hottest thing.
Well, if they want hot, we got hot.
Come to training, right?
Yeah, the money that we get back for our gear, this Mid-Fire hire, got some state money and has really been working with departments in general. We did a recruitment video. They came down, they took some pictures of us. They've been kind of coaching departments all around the state on how to recruit and how to retain. And so, some of these things are, hey, here's some best practices. Yes, some of this costs money, but to keep somebody, just like any business, it's hard to get that first person. Once you get them, you want to keep them.
Too bad we can't spend money on committee members on the city side.
Join the fire department.
Yeah.
I meant like Gold Rush Water and Sewer, Parks and Trails. Okay. Line 215 is training, education. Your conferences, we talked about this for this year too, I think it was.
So we've been fortunate that, to have people, but a lot of our people didn't want to do any outside training, the ones that we had. And, we would make them aware of training, but, we didn't get the request. Now that we have some younger people in the department, eager and excited, we now see requests. And so you saw, a couple months ago, the request of, hey, I would like to go to this formal conference and get more education, which now you're talking event, now you're talking travel.
Oh, yeah. No,
And so it makes sense that, okay, we're gonna encourage people to not just come and do our training, but actually get industry training and events. That's definitely an increase.
Out of curiosity, is there a way you could tie the amount spent on training to the time that they commit to being on the department? So you don't spend $4, $5, $6 grand training somebody and all of a sudden they're gone in 2 months.
So you're saying they have to commit to a certain amount of
The
time
time to
go through
to qualify for certain training.
Department, because we have that additional upfront training that we're paying for. And so the
So
people,
that's a 2-year commitment to do that?
we ask for a 2-year commitment because we wanna, they're gonna get in, they're gonna do the training, we wanna get something. And so we usually get, 2 years has been pretty good, but we don't, again, it's usually the younger people that are asking for this training, which is good. So we wanna encourage them. We don't let a new person, we would never send them on a week-long event because they just don't have the skills.
I just wanna train all the firefighters in the county, and this one goes to Byron, that goes to Yoder, this one goes to St. Charles, and on off different directions, you know?
It kind of works like that, right? I came from Hayfield. So my training was free. For Orinoco, we have Taylor, who's on the fire department, that came from Mazeppa Fire. He had 3 years experience there. So-
It goes hand in hand.
I came from Iota.
Right, Dan came from Iota. So
It's a two-way street, okay? Brandy.
this year, we were fortunate enough to get approved, for free, and then for the DNR paid for me to be in that training, fireline leadership last week, all week.
Okay,
So a grant from the DNR paid for that. But that doesn't come up often, and that was 24 firefighters in the state got that.
only 24. That's interesting. It's a good number. We got somebody out of that.
Next item is line 216, is wildland gear for 30,000. That to fight brush fires, or is that? So what's different from that gear from a normal fire department?
So we have structural firefighter gear. So if you've ever seen our gear, if you see the, Rochester Fire wearing it, I mean, it's for very high heat enclosed areas. Knock on wood, we don't have a lot of brush fires, but when, like we had one this year, I mean, you're out in the middle of a field, stomping fires and blowing fires, and you're wearing full turnout gear. So wildland gear is just kind of what you would expect. If you've seen some of the smoke jumpers and some of those things, it's definitely thicker than, my blue jeans, but it's not as thick. And so we just, if we respond to those fires, we do those type of things. At some point, we have gear. Other departments, you look at Pine Island, I mean, they have wildland gear. So we could, at some point, we need to make this an investment
Right.
into this gear. So yes, we're using the gear we have, but it's really not appropriate gear.
So asking for 27 sets, I'm assuming that's everybody. Does everybody need that? Can we look at this over? To help cut costs, can we look at 10 sets for the first year? Do we need 30 or 27 altogether? I mean, I realize it's all volunteers and you don't know who's gonna go, but at the same time, if we could buy 10 sets this year and 10 and 10 or expenses, that's feasible.
You're right. I was just gonna say exactly what you said. I don't know which ones are gonna show up all the time.
Well, if they really wanna go, just tell them there's 10 sets and the first 10 gets them, so.
Well, these are all fitted to everybody, just like our gear is. You go in like you're getting fitted for a suit. I mean, we could,
Yeah, you don't want to put double XL and a midget. But then again, they could wear their turnout gear too until it gets set around.
can we come back to 216 and talk about 217?
Okay.
So just like our fire gear, 10 years is the max, right? That we can use it, and then we can't use it after that, right? That's why you've seen in the past few years that we're bringing more gear in, or purchasing gear because we need to rotate our gear out. Wildland gear is the same. Our SCBA's, so our air packs, are 15 years. So in 2024, our air packs will be 15 years.
So
So
you're throwing this out for this expiring for its life expectancy according to the fire codes and stuff. And it's the same way with the fire truck. Right, is there,
right. Fire truck 25 years.
fire
right?
truck's outdated too, so
Right.
is there a way that do we have anything else at the fire department that is gonna be expiring that, give like a heads up? This is a heads up for next year.
Noticing this at the fire chief's meeting I was at last Tuesday, that he wasn't at because he was in training. The Rochester Fire Chief commented that the rural department in our area, OSHA came in and OSHA's fine driven and OSHA, for some reason, had a hot button of expired gear. And some small department got fined and they fined them the exact same cost of what the gear would have cost. So, you know, a helmet was $100, you know, they would charge $100 times every single one that was expired. So it's not just a safety issue, it's also preemptively getting ahead of the game in general.
So, to answer your question, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ryland. I didn't.
This is about the air packs?
Yep.
Okay,
Well, actually, they look at anything with a tag. So, you know, the masks we have, the helmets we have, you know, anything that has a date on it, they look at that, and NFPA, which has guidelines, says 10 years, and so OSHA has guidelines that that's. If anything over that, and so they're fine driven, so they've been doing it. So it's not unknown that somebody could come in.
So let me just talk about the SCBA's. We are partnering with other fire departments in Olmsted County, Rochester Fire,
Oh, not right, it was like 9 or 10.
Fire in Hayfield, Stewartville,
Pine Island.
Catfield, Pine Island. And we're going in for a grant, an AFG grant, requesting the government fully 90% fund new air packs, new masks, new RIT packs, which is like rapid intervention team packs, if somebody's down, you go in. New air compressors, new thermal imaging cameras, and that gate system. So our portion, now they finally put numbers to it this last week, and our portion is $25,000. Because we have to pay 10%. So this whole thing costs $250,000 to revamp, to completely replace our air packs, add new ticks, replace our RIT packs, and replace our compressor. Which was also gotten by a grant that Dan wrote 15 years ago.
so you're saying the 15,000 here should be 25,000?
Correct.
The compressor you're talking about, so that keeps the trucks charged with air.
That's the one that refills our air bottles.
Yeah, breathable air.
You know,
And we are kind of limping it along right now. We spent some money this year to have Fire Safety USA come in and limp it along until we can hopefully get this grant. They're pretty certain that we are going to get it. If we don't, we're gonna have to come up with some other idea. So that number 15,000 should be.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I mean.
You guys
so
have a lot of gear then?
It was pretty
Maybe
much
I-
set out where they were at least.
Is there a lot of
looking
gear
at
that
how
is
to,
outdated already?
You know, work on this stuff and do it
It's
logically.
Getting better, getting better. So when I got here, all but 3 sets were expired.
Right, I should say expired.
And now we have only 5 or 6 that are. So we're making progress right now at 4,500 ahead. You know, that's a huge expense.
So for line 225, you kind of jump down, we can send you the last numbers we got of what our 10% commitment would be.
That's what we're trying to do is we're catching up.
Yeah, on 217, sorry, line 225. 17, yeah, 217 is the number.
So 217?
Yep, so 217, where it says 20 new Scott.
Yep.
So if we, so I changed the 217 to 25,000.
Yes.
Okay. So can we go back and change our wireline gear to 10,000? And offset this increase that we just saw here.
I mean, I guess I just throw it out there, I mean, for these big items, is there, you know, well, how else would we budget or plan for these large expenses? You know, would this be like a planned CIP thing that would be done? I mean, it's time to do it, but do we do a little bit now and do a little bit later, or is this something that we have a better mechanism to plan for the big purchase and account for it versus a budget cycle? I guess I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, the CIP is, you know, we'd like to keep that more in a capital, real true capital sense of purchasing buildings, wastewater support. That's a huge issue. We'll talk about that when we get to the end here. We just have a lot of challenges ahead of us with our CIP. with our sewer service. And that's probably the biggest issue we have to be concerned about as a city to make sure it's operational and sustainable, at least for these first couple of years.
And I'm
So
not
if we cut it
opposed.
back to 15,000, the 30,000, cut it in half, is that okay?
I think that's a reasonable request and we'll,
Is it okay?
What if we just did pants? That would be extremely helpful to us.
What's that?
If we just did
maybe the
wildland
bumper
gear
pant,
pants.
the wildland gear pants.
Full pants?
So,
Just
yeah,
pants.
So that would put it,
The whole gear,
That's the.
what would that cut you to?
15.
Probably the most important part, isn't it? It's one of the most important parts. Shoes don't hurt either.
Well, we have the boots, it's just the pants are.
Would it, if you got just pants, would that cut that in half? To 15?
Get pants for everybody, or it's a,
And we could drop it down to, you know, the active members, which is 22, 23. That would say, I would drop it down a little bit more. We'll drop it to 15 and we'll keep it underneath that.
Do they have shorts?
That's the problem, the people covering fire call in shorts.
shorts are not allowed.
Okay, let's do that. That's a good.
So what are we saying? We're gonna drop it
15,000.
To 15 then?
Communication equipment, these are ongoing issues with pagers.
Yep, so that one, we still have people who don't have a pager because of this great growth we've been having. And so Johan been writing some grants, you know, I had the DNR grant, so I think we're plugging away, but we still have people who don't have a pager. And then we have radios that we got in 2008 that they no longer make, and if they break, they die, and so we need to start. So that's why we put some money in the fire and some in the first response to start making a plan to refresh them. Ideally, each person on a call should have a radio.
we've been kind of piecemealing them together. We've got
You have some
three or
already,
four that are
right?
out of service now because I can't find parts for them, or the screens are dead, or we're continuing to have problems finding batteries and, you know, they're old, they're
2008.
2008,
7, 8.
so.
Motorola's?
Yep, correct. But. Sorry, you gonna say something, Rylan? You got a question, Rylan?
Sorry,
You got a question to me?
no, I'm just,
Okay.
So the pagers are actually Unication, that's the brand, and the portable radios are Motorola.
so with this 18,000 and
Again, we spread between the two departments because. we have two
okay, there's
departments.
just used for
That
everything,
would-
okay.
That would get us. Again. New radios, you know, we gotta start.
Mhm.
Do you think this is a one-time expenditure?
No, it's.
Every year?
Continuing to replace.
I
it.
probably
I
have, I probably need 25 radios if I was gonna refresh all of them. And so I'm asking for 8 this year, and then we'll probably have 8 next year, and it'll probably take 4 years to refresh them all.
I would,
Looks to me like you're asking for 4 radios and 4 pagers.
Under
it's
fire, and then we had the same one under first responder.
so we're at 209, so it came down 5,000, I think. And then came down 15 and went up 10 here. Okay. Any other comments with fire department? First responders? Salaries?
I think some of this is gonna be offset too by the increase that we get from the township, right?
So last year's budget, we were at 31,000. And next year, we're asking for 80,000. But, right? But we, out of that 80,000, hopefully the township is going to get in 40. So really, we're only asking for like 9,000 more from the city. Our numbers continue to climb. This year, we're probably gonna be at 200 calls for medicals. We continue to do most of our work or calls in the township. 2 months ago, we had 15 in the township and 1 in the city. Last month, it was 8 in the township and 3, or yeah, 3, 2, yeah, 2 or 3. And so, you know, you can see that there's definitely a
2/3.
disparity. Yeah, it's very good.
So do you have both townships?
No.
New Haven and Orinoco, just Orinoco?
So let me ask. So you're saying we're asking the township for 40.
Mhm.
What if they tell you to take a walk,
Well, we know we'll at least get 8,000 because that's what they've been giving us for the past 6 years.
8,000?
Yep.
That's how far off they are.
Right,
Yeah.
It has not increased in 6-7 years.
Yeah, so
Or
the
call volume has.
Yeah, so the township pays Pine Island Fire District amount and they have, based on population, each year they crank up the amount. We've had 8,500 for like the last 5 years, mainly because we never discussed having some kind of mechanism to ratchet up or reevaluate it. So that's why we brought it up this year earlier, saying we think based on the call volumes and the disparity, we should be getting more. And so that number 40 came up. Seems reasonable to me to, we gotta, like, a lot of this other stuff, we gotta step up, and then we gotta figure out how each year to keep on going forward. And
we
they
need
seem
it.
amenable
That
to
we
it,
should.
because they
We
understand
need
it.
it.
So what kind, you know, out of curiosity, what kind of a contract does like Pine Island have with New Haven and what other ever township
So
that they
Pine
service?
Island, years ago created a Pine Island Fire District.
Right.
And in the district, then these townships, are being serviced by the district.
Right,
And what's different too is they also, like, they own some of the equipment. So it's kind of a different model.
but yeah, those townships have helped purchase the equipment for those.
Yes.
The fire district is for fire and first responders.
For Pine Island,
Yes,
yes.
Pine Island.
Yeah, and then they, years ago had Orinoco Township, but just logistically, they're farther. I mean, we have trouble beating Mayo Clinic ambulance service to calls, let alone them. So years ago, Orinoco picked up the township because we're just logistically, closer. And then the other townships, like I said, Pine Island Fire District Services, because it, works for them.
I'd say, I thought it was kind of silly to see Pine Island over on 75th Street across the river. Really? How long did it take them to get there?
They have the township for fire protection.
Exactly.
It's another story, but.
So do we have township for fire and rescue?
No, just for-
Or just fire?
Yeah, city fire,
Just residents.
township
Fire.
for fire and for medicals, and medicals also in the city. So fire is only in the city.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's continue on here. So,
I guess where I was going with that is there a chance that when you're planning on being able to get this much of a hike out of them, is there a chance to say, no, we're gonna go contract, the Orinoco Township's gonna go contract Pine Island for their services instead?
I think they could, but I see no reason why.
response
Why
time,
they'd wanna change.
response time would be a lot longer.
I understand that, but
You know, somebody dies, you go, okay, what's that worth? Okay.
I understand
One
that, but
person
you got the-
dies, 40 grand is
Well,
pretty cheap.
I understand that, but you have the same thing with the fire department. The fire department manages that, it's, you got response time.
Well, here's my issue, what I'm seeing. So all those extra calls that are out to the township, that's on the back of the city, the city taxpayers, and they're getting by only paying $8,000. I think we need to say, this is what you have to give us.
So at the meeting that we're at, Sunny took to work with them on, what
Sonny was
kind,
working
what
with
kind
them,
of, what kind of
working with
pay.
Joel.
Yeah, and then this number 40 came out, which to me seems, okay, 85 to 40,000 seems like a pretty good jump up. And I don't know where that number had come from.
I can tell you.
Okay.
So the number came from, in my going through the files, that's what I saw, that the 40,000 had been discussed, at least from Sonny's perspective.
Okay.
So I was just curious where it was at, because I was working on the budget, so I sent, Ken, supervisor chairman, an email about where the status was of this discussions. And I said, we're looking at 40,000 in the budget and just want to make sure how's the progress going to the discussions. So he came back and said that's the first time he's heard that number. So I kind of let the cat out of the bag, if you will, but that's, the number's out there, but then that's why I think Chris is now talking with Joel, who's their representative working on this. So they're talking, we're trying to get them some information. I don't know where it goes, but that number's out there.
We can't
It's a
be
start.
carried.
It's not, it's just a starting.
The residents are paying for it.
Right, the
Well,
residents are running.
Population of townships larger than the city anyway.
Okay, let's keep you over here. We'll come back. We might got something.
But I guess the point is, we need to draw a line in the sand before we move. We need to draw a line in the sand, because we're making our fire department cut their budget. And I get it, it's doubled, but we're telling our fire department to cut the budget, but we're not drawing a line in the sand with the biggest user of some of our services. And are we just gonna let it go? You know, that, I have an issue with that, because
I get
it's my taxes that are paying for it and everybody else in the city. And we're not a charity. That's my.
Those are all good points, and I would hope Crispy would be in those discussions.
And like I said, that when I was at the township meeting, they totally appreciated, oh man, we've been paying you nothing. And our call volume has been going up. I mean, they were.
The need is there, it's just coming up with that number.
Yeah, exactly. It is the number. They understand the number's going up. You know, is it 40? I mean, it could be more. What he's mentioning is Chris Inman on My First Responders did get a letter asking all kinds of questions. I think they're trying to understand. And I think the data will show we have more people, we have drastically more calls, we have more expenses, and their commensurate part of it should go up. And
Yeah.
I think all that will show that. So.
Okay.
That doesn't concern me.
Hey, general increases. This consortium cost, why did that increase so much?
So what they did is they changed it. They gave us like a flat fee, I think it was like $500. And then every 2 years, we would do recertification for our EMR certification. We'd have to pay for that. So they kind of went to a model for the whole area. I think it's up to 20 people. It's $1,500. If it's more than that, then it goes up. And that includes everything. Includes the 5 trainings that we get a year from the Southeast Consortium and the EMR recertifications whenever they would come up for any member. So it's kind of a flat rate. So I think it's 1,500. And now since we're over 20, we're now in the next flip one.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little higher than it was last year.
Yeah.
Because we have more members, which again is a good problem.
What comes out of that too is
Oh, we
going
went
to
for-
class, going to EMR class, going to EMT class.
Well, we really missed the budget. Last year, we said 500, and we was doing 1,500.
That's correct. Because there's this new, it just implemented last year, this new tiered structure.
Okay,
I mean, if you want, the next one, the N95 fit testing, we have now determined that we do not have to do the fit testing. So if you want, you could take that $1,000 out.
the training budget. So last year was 11,000, now we're looking at 6,000.
You know, last year was 4,200. We blew through that because
That's the budget.
our actual is 11,000
Actual was 11.
because we brought so many people on.
What we're thinking that will,
Peak, that will probably.
that peak can go down. It's not-
11 new trainees, okay. Insurance because of the new pickup truck. First responder. Work comp. Telephone, electricity, heating. Gas, oil. What's the tank rental? Oxygen tank rental?
Tanks.
Yeah, so our O2 bottles that we have, years ago, we would have, as we're using up an air bottle, like it's 500, we can't, we're not just use it because it might run out and we can swap with At that time, it was Gold Cross Ambulance. They know now, they no longer swap. So when our auction bottles go down, we have to fill them. Nobody wants to fill just bottles. They want you to fill bottles that you've kind of rented. So we are now this Lindy Supply, you know, which we're fighting with because we actually, I didn't quite appreciate that I was renting at a certain price versus just filling.
Let's
So,
take things back.
Yeah.
It's like torch tanks. Nobody owns them. They're
Yeah.
actually owned by the seller and the filler.
Yeah, so we're gonna.
Like
we're-
Mississippi
some of those
was.
we have to have a smarter amount, but we now have a rental and filling kind of fee each year, or each month, so. It is what it is. We've been looking at thinking we could maybe buy some equipment, try and fill them, and it sounds like too much of a hassle.
So how long is the lease on them? On the tanks? Is there?
Well, it's like an indefinite, because as you use it, you return it, get a full one and come back, so.
Okay, so that's just tank exchange fee is what that is.
Yeah,
Yeah, the monthly, it's like, I can't remember what it was,
something per bottle.
per bottle, yeah. And just on the rig alone, I think we have 6 or 7 bottles. On the rigs themselves, we have 6 or 7 bottles that we carry. So for backups and.
So with your new vehicle, selling the other one, current one. Is it in good shape for selling, or do you have to put some money in it to sell it?
No, I don't think there's a high market for
23-year-old ambulance.
Dog grooming business or something like that.
in Iota, when we sold our ambulance, it's the Shriners that you see every summer. When they're doing the Merry Medics, if you actually looked at it closely, you can see the old Iota ambulance. So somebody will buy it. There's a market.
Oh, there's,
Right.
Somebody will buy it.
so the reimbursement, will that come back into our
So when we sell it, it's a city vehicle, so yes, the city would get the money.
donations, yeah?
Yeah, if we sell it on auction or GovX or something,
Right.
you'll get the money. It's such a part low, I don't like.
Okay, we're down to the new stuff. Of, the $1,500, the $4,500 for outfits, t-shirts. Merchandise shop item.
Oh, we have, it probably doesn't need to be in there.
Yeah.
We have a merch shop that AZ Embroidery set up for us that we actually use our own money for. That they've got just OFD and OFR branded sweatpants and whatever else that we can buy.
Yeah, so that really shouldn't be in there, it's.
Yeah, it's not.
So the safety jackets are different than. If a person's a fire department and a first responder. They get jackets for both departments in, is there a difference in those jackets in?
There is.
Well, some of that.
Is there any opportunity to reduce that figure?
Everybody's got a jacket,
No.
everybody now has a safety jacket, I guess you could. Wanna go to 100 a head?
Yeah, we could drop that down to 2,500.
Okay.
And they're, the part of these are duty shirts, you go to a call and you get bodily fluids on you. Are you gonna wash it? You're gonna throw it out. So. That's why we have multiples for people.
Carry them on the truck?
So your training, or gatherings. That's the same as the first responder, fire department. So if you have events like this for gatherings and appreciation. You do them separately or do you do them together or?
It would be, they're together.
Mostly.
It just seems like a duplicate, maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but. Seems like a duplicate of dollars to do the same thing. Here you're talking about $5,000 between the two groups to have gatherings, so that seems a little high, but. I think there's a need for some funding, but I don't know if it's $5,000.
What would you feel comfortable with? I mean,
Okay,
what would you suggest? I mean,
I'd say at
five
least
thousand is too high for
1,500.
1,500 each or 1,500 for total?
No, I was thinking the 2,500 down to this 2,500 to 15
Okay. For each?
for each, yes,
I'd be fine with that.
for both line 244 and
222.
We appreciate you $60 a year.
244 and.
So it's just basically cutting from $100 to $60 per person. Of what we can kind of use for gatherings and team building. And, you know, retention.
Fire department gathering, but
Yeah, 1,500 for recruitment. Retention, okay, 214.
oh, I guess, okay, here it's covered.
Yeah, 214.
Let's call it retention in the fire department.
I don't know why those didn't come through on this.
214 from 25
15.
to 15. And 244.
Typically. Gathering.
Well, reality isn't community outreach and recruitment of the same thing. On the fire department side of it. And then 2,500 for retention.
Carry over. We picked that at the last meeting, yeah.
Well, you're line 245, the training,
Conference is
1,000. They do the same training or different training?
Different, yeah.
So the technical thing.
Different, yeah, like, I mean, it's similar but different, so, you know, the first responders, that request we had, they wanted to go to an EMS conference.
Mhm.
It was down in Orlando, and all they talked about medical stuff, that's totally different than a fire patrol. Like he would have gone to, or one that we have in the regional areas, talking about how to vent a building or those type of things.
Rylan, as a taxpayer, can I ask a question during this meeting?
I'm sorry,
Can I ask a question during this meeting?
sure.
I just, I'm a taxpayer and I love the fire department. I'll tell you that I was on city council and I represented the fire department, but as a taxpayer, when I look at over 100% increase in each of these categories, did we not budget for some of these things before, like 6,000 for conferences? Did you not go to conferences before?
Correct.
I mean, when we're looking at this as a taxpayer, I say maybe we fund one person this first year and we can ramp that up, but I mean, these are some big numbers. My taxes went up 44% for the city, 22% last year.
Under 42 this year.
I mean, we have to ease into some of these things. I'm not saying these things are bad, but I think we have to ease into them. This is real money.
I appreciate your comment, that's, well, first of all, I appreciate you coming too, but that's why we're asking the questions as much as we can, if we can. We're just, fire department's kind of a unique situation because of all the regulations and the potential OSHA and stuff like that, so there is a need that we've I won't say we've neglected it over the years, and this is just
The safety things, pagers, radios, equipment, absolutely, you have to do those things.
Yeah.
Some of these things are optional, and I think you have to ease into them over several years.
Council, take your comments into consideration as we look towards the final budget, so. And 246. First responders and the fire use the same radios, everything, right?
Yes,
First,
yeah, the same radios, same pagers. That's why we split them between the two. That we're gonna buy one for one, you're gonna buy one for the other.
see.
terms of the radios. What's the possibility of budgeting some of them for this year and some of them for next? Or is it, well, you guys said,
You gotta get enough of them to replace, and we just
well, in
plan ahead.
yeah, and this is the issue of not keeping up with it in the past.
That's a big theme.
You pay now or you
I appreciate
pay
this
later.
Comment about easing in, but like I said, some of this stuff, maybe we should have been, okay, let's do 2 pagers every single year. And it wouldn't be this big ramp up, you know,
Yes.
you're right, so some of these are definitely up, so that's why, you know, requesting only
Pagers,
four,
gear.
yeah, we need 20-some radios to be
All of
refreshed.
it needs to be refreshed.
So there's other places.
10, 15 years of it not
Can
getting
cut our
refreshed.
I totally see.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm not pointing the hand when I say that.
Yeah, we all live here.
Elsewhere.
There's Park and Recreation was another area that increased. 337.
Did you wanna go, Riley, I'm sorry, did you wanna go over emergency operations?
Which one?
Emergency operations, it's on
Oh,
two
I'm
fifty,
sorry. You're right. Yeah, we should touch base there.
then we can be out of your hair.
Operating. Okay.
He's next on the list anyways.
Salaries under fire chief. Supplies. So, yeah. I understand what you're saying. I just really. Well, both the supplies and the container. $9,000 for supplies and a container to hold them.
Is that the container that's over here now?
So, no, this is the second container. The first container is correct. So this is the new container.
What's
This
the
would be
first?
second one?
What's the first one for?
The first is for storage, bring stuff out of the fire hall.
What stuff is that? Is it turnout equipment?
Current gear, hose, other miscellaneous things, we can't walk around our trucks right now.
Okay.
So the question, there's several comments. One is how many cots?
So here's our thinking on this. If we have what EOC, right? Emergency Operations Center, you know, planning for emergencies, right? We have an event like a tornado. Like what Mayo was started. Or we have, you know, fire that rips through town or something, right? A bigger event where we need to house people. We need to get people away from the event, another flood, something like that. The fire hall is set up with a generator and has space to help house displaced citizens. Right now, we have a place to house them, but we have nowhere they would be on concrete. And all we would have is old turnout coats to give them to cover up with. So our thought was, we should probably use the money to fund what EOC is for. Cots, pillows, blankets. Already the EOC takes care of I think it's on here.
The generator.
The generator, thank you. So if you wanna cut it down, okay, I have no problem wrapping it up. But I think that we should start having these things and purchasing these things and having them ready should an event happen.
So these events, when they do happen, like we had the flood here, well, not the September 2010 flood, but when we had water here in 2019,
Okay.
18, spring of 19. EOC, Pat, I think they had a couple pumps that pumped a couple houses down by the DNR. They pumped the basements, so. Could we have another flood like we did in September 2010? Probably not, because the dam is gone, so that water flows now. So to me, I think I appreciate the EOC thought of doing that in the container, but I just see stuff sitting there for 10 years and never being used. And it takes space. You've got one container coming. It's here, I should say. I guess it was delivered today. So it's here today. So I did say, hold off and just see how you use that container. And maybe sometime in the future, we can consider supplies to store a container and just take both of those items down to zero.
But I mean, Ryland, if you see, right, I think that's 2,000 that was in their budget last year and they only used 250. You just leave them at the 2,000 and they fund and spend their budget in 2024.
I'm not sure what that was, The other council members' thoughts.
I have to agree with Warren on that. That's $2,000. They use that for buying that stuff and buying what they can of it with it.
Well, in our area, we have a Red Cross, and I'm assuming Olmsted County has some type of emergency arrangement too, with their EMC. If we were a bigger town with threats of flooding, I think that's something, but I don't think the threats of flooding we have now are minimized by the way the dam has been removed.
That's one threat, you're right. It's mitigated.
Joe was talking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's one threat, you're right, that has been mitigated.
So to that point, could we just take the $2,000 that's there and start building this up over the next year? Just use the money that's there that hasn't been used.
You'd have enough room in the container that you just got to be able to do that for a start, at least have something that's there.
I think so.
Yeah, so under EOC, the known expense is the generator, which is $750. So you just wanna do, let's say 2,500, so that gives us 2,000 to spend toward some stuff for next year.
Well, what we're looking at is you got the 2,000 that was budgeted for this year that hasn't been used.
I think it's gonna be.
Well, you're saying 2,000 for 24
Yeah,
and no container.
yep.
So is this a difference, just the generator outside the building, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
that needs to be maintained no matter what.
every year, it's a GM motor in there, so every year They come out, they change the oil, they do these things.
$750 to change oil, change the fuel in it each
It
year.
runs every Monday, and when I called them up and I said, that seems like a lot of money. And they're like, okay, you know, are you willing to take the risk that when you need it, it won't run? And then people point the finger and I'm like, okay. It's like you
Do they-
pay to fix it, and it's guaranteed.
Do they change the fuel in it each year too? It's a
LP.
diesel.
Yes.
It's LP, okay.
Natural gas.
I'm sorry.
Natural gas, sorry.
Okay, never mind.
Natural gas. It runs every Monday.
Yeah, I've heard.
So I like the idea of keeping this 2,000 budget, keep 2,000 for next year or for this 2024. And eliminate, you can use it how you want to use it, but the $2,000 we suffice for EOC. And then take the $3,000 container, take it down to 0. And see how your experience goes with the one you have now.
Does EOC need printables? Line 255.
Again, if we're gonna pick, you could probably wipe it out because we can bury it in the other two departments. We were trying to think of things that we print for training and everything and trying to account it in the department where it is, but I'm not gonna argue over 250. We can figure that out somewhere else.
Well, you kind of your EOC stuff is kind of blended between the fire department, first responders anyway. And there's just somebody in between that says, hey, you do, don't, make sure you're talking to this person.
I'd like to see EOC 2,500.
I'm sorry.
So that I'd like to see EOC be 2,500 so I can make sure that generator gives me, you know, almost 2,000 then to spend for other stuff. You only give me 2, I'm losing 750 right there, so now I'm down to 1,250.
I don't think you scratch that to 0. That needs to be serviced.
Right.
That's not, that's
That's
750 is not a question on my part.
You're saying just for line 253, that would take 6,000 down to 2,500 or down to 2,000?
Well, if you're looking at 750 that there is to service that unit that there is, then I think maybe closer to 3,000 then off of that. Because we're knocking the 3,000 off right now for the container.
So what you're saying is take 6 down to 2,500, get rid of the container and use the 2,000 that is left with the 2,500.
So he wants you to spend this month.
Oh, it'll be spent. We'll probably pay for the Connex box out of that. The one that's sitting over there.
I guess I'm confused.
Do we still need to turn around for servicing the generator they have over there?
Keep the
Okay.
750.
That's right there.
Yeah.
That's the one, I'm trying to keep that 750.
So, okay, I see it there now.
I think we-
I missed that.
I think we do the 2,000 and replace the 6,000 with the 2,000 and give them the 750 to service the generator. That generator is gonna service no matter what,
Yeah. So we make it 2,500 then?
2750.
Well, you got 750 on line.
We got
258.
750 already in there.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
258, we've got 750 in that. It didn't come over for some reason, but that's generator maintenance.
So just so I'm clear, line 253, we drop that to 2. Right? We remove the container.
Right.
257.
Remove the 255,
Right,
line 255.
Yep, so we remove that.
What's the line 259 says new on it?
That's 750 building generator.
No,
yearly.
number 259.
communication is 0. 255 is 0.
yes, yeah.
Because it didn't come over.
So that's a
Well, they're
zero.
for auditing, isn't it?
No, it says 259 says new, and it says 200 on it.
Agree. I don't know.
We'll take that out then, right?
Yeah.
259's out.
We don't know what it is, take it out.
So what's the training for the EOC part of it? That's,
Okay, this is one of those, we've never had training, but now we have, you know, newer people. I guess if, again, people complain about the increase.
500 was budgeted the last 2 years and they didn't use that. so.
and they didn't use it.
We also had a different EOC director.
Correct. And now we've moved it kind of more mainstream fire. chief.
So is this 2,500, how many people is that gonna train for EOC? How many people are on the EOC part of it?
Fire chief holds the EOC mission. But we were, again, in the spirit of adding conferences and giving people extra training, we added that line item. If you don't wanna take that jump and cover it under fire. Yes. You have to get here, we can get rid of that for this year and then reevaluate as we go forward.
You said get rid of 250, line 254?
Well, we keep it at 500.
Oh, keep it at five and.
I just said that, just
Spend
because that's what we
500.
had this year.
Just haven't used it, so.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
again, our last EOC director didn't do any training.
What kind of training do they do, Dan?
So that was the problem, you know, there's all kinds of trainings that come out there. Every year we do, you know, weather storm spotter training, you know, luckily we get that to the, you know, free, but there's other EM, emergency management training that we could do, but
I'm just curious where.
It's used maybe for FEMA training or something like
yeah,
that.
there are always lots of opportunities that I get, and I say, thank you, that's interesting, but
See where it comes right now in the training, says, "No, I got something else I gotta do that weekend, taking the kids fishing or something."
like anything else, you know, there's so much out there
Exactly.
that is, would be great.
Okay.
I think you wanted to leave the 500 there, Ryland.
Leave the 500 from what the.
I think they should go to something.
Yeah, they should have something.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Leave
meant,
it
yeah,
training.
you're right, I meant to put
Even
500.
if it's paid for by FEMA or something, we've got mileage or we've got something else that we need to.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
1,000 by the time you pay for a hotel room, which
Pretty much.
you might want 1,000 to make it worthwhile.
Mhm.
I'm fine with the changes.
You wanna make it as 1,000 then? No, 500?
There weren't taxes, he said, make it 1,000.
Anything for 500.
Don't feed the bear.
Let me show you that I use it more.
So we're making that 1,000? That we're doing.
Any other questions there where we're at?
So did we make that 1,000?
No, we're leaving it at 500.
Right.
Yeah, it's okay with
So
500.
it's 500. 2,500 goes down to 500.
Ryland, I think you want to update 254 then. If they're gonna go to 500 instead of 1,000.
Yeah, that'll be 500 instead of 1,000.
We'll go back down. As it 500, yeah.
Right?
Yep, if and when I go to training, it costs 1,000 then. So we'll crank it up.
So we got the public works. We consolidated some public works and Milford into community center. The community center and shop rolled into facilities. Your way of keeping track, snow removal. Light increase total. Street lighting was rolled into streets and roads.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, just before you leave, Johan, came into City Hall today and they've, the fire department has acquired, 4 radios. Is that what it is? 4 radios
So
or 4?
4 grants, that I
Four?
wrote for 4, I wrote for multiple, more grants than 4, but we received 4.
Pagers.
Well, we received acceptance of 4 grants for a total of $3,300. So like many corporations do, they require us to show that we are a government entity. So they need us to fill out a W-9, so I talked to Shirley and said, I need to get this signed so I can send it to them. This is actually for Quick Trip stores. They gave us $1,000. So it'll pay for one of these.
So we're just letting the council know that Renee will sign this form for them tomorrow, because I'm not authorized to sign anything, so that they can turn this in for the grant. Just, there's no action needed. We just want you to know.
It's
that.
not a matching grant. It's just they're giving us $1,000.
Great.
That's nice.
Nice job.
Thank
You
you.
applied for it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Great. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Questions about streets and roads?
So we're at number, we're back to 257 then? 257. So you're looking at 274.
Red sheet or? 750 there for the generator.
Yep,
Yep, let's see.
that's what they asked for, so. It said that's basically their cost each year to do it.
So, moving on.
Okay, let's see, go to what, 277 then? Is that the next one that we want to pay around with, which is gonna be subcontracted services? Ice and snow sanding.
So,
There's been years when we had to use a grader. I think that's what it was for. Is that right, Kane?
Yes, that's correct. And depending how we code those invoices, that could be rolled into ice and snow removal, but I don't think that's what you guys are asking for right now.
What's the subcontracted services number?
yeah,
It'd be hiring somebody to do a service, like a road grader, outside of our current snow plowing contract.
Okay.
So we used $43 last year. Back in.
$43, is you start the thing?
21,
Turn the key?
21, we must use a grader or something.
19, you use 5,000.
So here's what I'm proposing to the city council. Let's cut some money here. Let's take $4,800 out of the budget. That's me working with the council, working with the budget, working with the taxpayers. Let's remove that $4,800 and I will make sure that it gets covered in those other accounts.
now with this snow removal,
That's our contractor.
yeah,
What I'm saying is if we need to hire a subcontractor outside of that plowing contract.
Yeah.
We'll find a way to make that happen. If you look historically, it's so, such a small amount and insignificant amount. So let's remove it.
so, yeah, okay, we don't have time.
It's an amount that hasn't been used is what he's basically saying. This 2019, they only used it. That was the only time they really used it.
Such an inconsistent,
Right. Number.
We have had to use it.
We had what?
We've used it before, in the years before, 2019. When that ice gets really thick and then Paul can't get it off, you gotta come in with the meter.
Nothing to do with it.
Sold the heck out of it.
So 278 for the ice and snow removal of this 2023 budget plus 20%, that should be 48,000 instead of 40.
Say they get.
They said, well,
Our budget was 40.
No, it should be 48. Okay, the budget,
Yeah, it is. 48.
Cause it says
48.
2023 budget plus 20%.
so it should be 48.
2023 budget was 40.
And I mean, the cost of fuel and everything else, I can see where it's, yeah, and you never know what's going. If it's not a rough winter, great, we end up saving money, but I think that it should be 48.
Oh, I see.
Actually, we're at 72.
And he is 2022, so 24. All right, street lighting. Went into streets and roads.
We go under electricity, is
Yeah,
that what that one? Okay. Yeah, street lighting.
So those are pretty straightforward with
Yeah.
maintenance increase. Tree removal went into grounds. But tree removal, we kept at 24,000 here.
Was originally 20, so that's the 20%.
Ryland, we had talked about splitting that between parks and streets. Or however you wanna do that.
We've got a regular
So-
department number now, I wonder, should we just leave it at that department number
Well,
Mm-hmm.
or not?
We
Parks and
should-
Grounds is down here, Parks and Rec, I guess is what it's called.
I guess what I would say is there's tree removal for parks. And there's also tree removal for roads. However you guys wanna break that out, however you wanna track that tree removal. If it makes a difference or if it doesn't.
And I think it was split out, so we knew.
I would just
Where?
leave it just. Tree removal wherever in the city. It's kind of how we're doing it today.
You know, and if we could change tree removal to maybe tree care. Right?
Yeah.
But-
Because you do have a program going on in Orinoco Park where you're. With some university with
Yeah,
treating those ash trees.
so that could come out of like repair and maintenance grounds for the parks. I mean, that would be,
Want to do tree removal and care to put in there, is that how you want to put it?
Tree maintenance. This is what it is. Take it up if you need it.
Like maintenance.
Has the roads actually been an issue with trees other than the Cemetery Hill and Tronson's back there?
Cemetery Hill got trimmed by itself, it wasn't through the city.
Right, but
I know, because I was one of them that did it.
So my question on the street lighting. Do we have to add 15%? We budgeted we budgeted 19.2.
So what's electricity gonna go up in your house next year?
budget 19.2 is actually 14.4.
But what I'm getting at is. We're shy like almost 5,000.
And then we raised it.
And is this to date? The
I don't know
actual,
if the actual is right though, is that right for the 14?
Are there streetlights that we use paid land too?
But also you gotta remember, we've added some streetlights too, or we are going to be adding.
I think the
some
other
if we
four
add
that's on the
more
other
into
side.
that bucket.
For streetlights?
Putting four on the other side by Tilly's.
And we already added one over there again.
That's right, we did the one in the
So
park.
it's the streetlights then.
Okay, so that's
So-
another one.
It probably, I would say you're probably good on that one.
Just leave,
I mean,
leave
we
it
had-
at
Anyway,
20.
it's 22.
So we've done 14, 4 through end of October, so we have 2 months left, so that's And-
Might be
It's not
pretty-
gonna cost $3,000 to run.
22
lights,
acres
is it?
fine, I think.
Well, no, no,
Not
I'm
four,
just
but when
saying,
you run all the other ones, I think streetlights are close to 1,500 every month.
Do we know how many lights we have? So it's 1,500 a month for all the lights?
Well,
No.
just that one
Without
bucket
those
of the
additional-
Well, it's
streetlights.
14.
The lights are-
That's 1,200 a month at 14,400. 12 times 1,200.
They just got the number of lights, I think it's $34, $35 a street light per month. So we added 4 lights, 5 lights, it's 160, so it's like $1,600 a year.
Are they all LEDs, you know, Kane? Are they?
They are, yeah.
I'm sure if they've all switched over to that. It seems like 35 seems.
But
a
are we
lot.
changing anything here on electricity? Are we okay with $22.80?
$1 a day, $100, that's not bad.
What'd you ask, Ryan?
Is 22.80 okay in line?
I think so, let's just. leave it-
297.
Leave it at that.
Let's leave it there.
Okay.
You know, and the other,
Change to your comment about moving is if I can move these spreadsheet lines, I should be able to. Without. Too many. Iterations of getting everything else linked.
Yeah, and Ryland, you can leave tree removal as its own department, that's fine. That rolling into parks, ground and streets roads, that comment there.
Anyway,
If you wanna keep that fund the way it is, just remove that and the shading there and. I'm fine with that.
and the other thing I'll mention here, Kane, with the tree removal. Do we normally get other bids besides arborists?
You know, we
They are
have,
going, there's.
we have done that in the past and that's something to look out for in the future and we can request that. Going into 2024, request bids from tree contractors and just compare rates. Man hours, bucket hours, chipper hours, you know, truck hours, you name it. That's something that we could compare and
I mean, I'm all about local, but I think we need to do whatever we can to save. Save as much as we can too. And, you know, if it's competitive and maybe
Well,
it'll come down.
what we would save is the amount of work being done, you know.
Mhm.
We've got a bucket of money. We can cut 100 trees or we can cut 50 trees based on
we're 4 stumps.
those rates, you know, so.
Mhm.
But yes, good point, Jim. I will request that through. I'm friends with several. I know several of the tree contractors around here, so
Okay, good. Good, good. Thank
keep
you.
them on it.
Yep, absolutely.
For sure.
In the case of the shop, there's 20% increases, which is. We're seeing that in a lot of things, of course, electricity. Insurance.
Or cars, you know,
What about supplies? So we have supplies line 309. We budgeted 10, we've used 57. And my thought is. Looking across the board, just because we have money, I don't wanna. Look at it as, oh, we've got a bucket of money, we better use it before the end of the year, use it or lose it. I would hope we look at things of. Like, okay, we've got a little money left, maybe we can carry a little bit of money over and lessen that budget a little bit. But, so Kane, you're almost half.
I-
On that one,
did you purchase some stuff that,
Yeah, we just.
and it
We
doesn't
just
show up
purchased
here?
a bunch of this last month, Jim, and
okay, and that's not reflected in here,
no.
okay,
so-
okay,
No, I only have $10,000 to spend. You know, that fund there is tools citywide, you know, besides water and sewer. so.
Okay.
Really, that 10,000 is,
Goes quick.
it goes everywhere, it's facilities, it's grounds, it's everything.
Shovel, wherever you
That'd be the tools to put in the fourth public works person truck.
Yes, exactly, yeah, it's,
Okay.
it's used in every department, you know,
Yeah.
like, then that 10,000 doesn't seem like much at all when you split it up like that, but.
Right.
electricity, that 313 that we actually used. It's budgeted for 2,
And we
and we
had
had 24.
Well, that seems off to me just because I look at my personal electric bill and it's, you know, 150, 200 a month, so.
Yeah, I'm sure the stereo going down there 24 hours a day.
Yeah, something's wrong with that, okay, I it definitely.
Something seems skewed there.
Something skewed, yeah.
Well, if you're on the even pay plan.
What would you want to put there?
I just leave it the same way with the 2,400.
Should we though?
Yeah, I
Well, I
think
think
so.
minimum
Just
meter readings in the
That's-
forties, so you know.
You look
have
at the
that.
years, 313.
Yeah,
So something didn't get recorded.
something isn't right there, yeah, so at least I think I do that one.
Ryland, you were saying what?
So if you look at the line clear across there, 314. Never been above,
Never been above.
one of them was above
1,000.
1,000.
It was 21.
19 was more expensive for some reason.
Yeah, well, you're right there, 2163 off of that, so I feel okay with that, just to have that in there.
What year did we build the shop? Is it 17, 8? Somewhere.
It
16.
15 into 16, it says on that first sheet,
Oh, I guess I.
Sat idle for a year.
the gold bond was issued in 2013.
Okay.
So we'll leave it at 2,400 or you want to reduce it?
Just leave it to 2,000.
Okay.
They think leave it at 2,000?
That's what it was last year.
So you're saying drop it from 24?
Drop it from 24 to 2,000.
Your 23 budget off. of that.
Because they hadn't hit 2,000 yet on it, except that 1 year. Must have been something extraordinary in 2019.
Yeah, you just don't know how everything's being
That's probably
reported
the
either.
EOC
off
years
the-
that they,
Could not, might have been not reported correctly either, so
exactly.
we're getting better.
So leave it at 2. Say.
2,000.
So 2,000 and not 24, okay? Heating.
What's R&M buildings? Is that building itself?
Hang on 1
Correct.
second. What about heating? So if you look across, and I know this is gonna be, seems to be a little bit light year so far anyway. Well.
But again, you gotta-
4, 3.
Yeah, it was a mild winter last year, that's for sure.
Mhm.
So I'd just leave those in there.
How about if we leave it at 3,000? Just in
Leave it
case
the
we have a
same.
severe winter,
Okay,
It was the same as what it was last year.
3,000.
gas, oil and maintenance, that looks. What did we say R&M what?
That's an actual building you spent.
Maintenance. I mean, that can move up pretty quick. I don't know what it costs to have that garage door put on. Fire,
As insurance covered that.
but I mean, what was the cost of that?
$5,000.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just saying if something would happen over there, to be able to have money to be able to cover it's what I'm thinking about.
The Orinoco Dam, this is the last payment. What the payment was for is that when we did the reconstruction of the dam or river and removal of the dam, we had a 60% cost share of that project. And so this is our last year of our payment towards that.
It took 5 years to pay that on. What year did they do the dams?
Maybe 7,
Yeah, so you end up,
2017.
we got 20,000 almost last year off of that. Easy 62.
And the 17 last year was because we missed the previous year
Ah,
with the changeover And, city administrators lost it, so I just wasn't aware of it, so we had to pay it double, or part of it double. Parks and Rec. Parents. Park.
When's the last time we
Water
shopped,
sewer.
when's the last time we shopped for, health benefits, or where they come from, or who do we get them through?
Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yeah.
I just wondered, was the last time we checked in the price of that, cause it's,
No idea. It hasn't been since I've been here.
it's something we probably should. We should probably look into that.
Be worth it.
Oh,
Be
absolutely.
worth it. Like shopping for your car insurance, right?
Exactly, you know,
Maybe we can
Might
look at
be- might be
that
a
next year
benefit
when
to
we
them.
have a full staff.
is that,
Said maybe we can look at that next year, we have a full staff.
you know, I wouldn't wait a year, where you get a full staff is something.
Well, the problem is now, a lot of it, you had to get locked in a month or two
Well,
ago, so
absolutely, but you know.
We're gonna have to wait until next year
Yeah,
to.
cause they are locked in.
Right, right, you're
Yeah.
locked, you
But
lock
you can
in,
start looking this
like
year.
November into December, you lock in, and now's the time to be shopping for next year.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
when we get a full staff.
Anything else? Jump out at you.
Okay, the mower, that's on a yearly replacement that you're doing for that one, Kane?
Yep.
How did that work for selling it outright this year?
Financially fine, logistically, a pain in the, you know what?
Oh, we turned out all right.
Yeah, but the time involved and I don't know if it,
How did we?
I don't
Help me
know.
out with that. Help me out with that. What did you have to do? Just out of curiosity.
well. We sat on it for a month. Over a month.
No one would buy it or just because of the process?
Just the
No.
process. The process was cumbersome. And it was just cumbersome. Few people called and scheduled times to come look at it and just had to take time out of our day to be there, and
Was that sold on public surplus then?
we did a sealed bid for that mower.
What did we
Why
get
is it-
for
why
it?
would- We should consider putting it on public surplus,
What did we end up
that way it
getting?
goes cross country.
I believe it was 7,000,
300.
Yeah, that's better than what we were gonna get on trade.
we were gonna get 6,500 on trade, yep.
And what did it sell for?
73.
7,000.
Yeah.
Really,
That might cost our relationship with the person we buy it from too. Because this previous year, we had a lot of out of warranty costs that he covered for us. Just because of the relationship. The buying and trading every year. So we may have lost that advantage.
What's the new one, what do the new ones cost to start with?
16, 17,
Just under 17.
17?
Yep.
we traded
We
for
get
11.
3 years out of them?
Yep.
Pretty toast after 3 years. See a lot of the school mowers. They can be toast.
They get some use, that's for
All
sure.
right, let's keep moving here. General equipment. Slight increase. Recreation, is that T-ball maintenance?
You know, I'm not sure. I hardly code anything to that number.
What is it?
Recreational activity. Which is 354.
I would have to look, but yes, there is some T-ball purchases that come out of there. They had some equipment and stuff that they needed to purchase this year. Most of that is covered by their fees, so it's kind of a in and out, but. And then I don't remember what else came out of there.
We were over this last year.
What's the general equipment line?
The fire responders about $800 worth of T-ball shirts. But that's covered with the fee, I guess.
So what's the general equipment line? 353.
That could be anything from park facilities, picnic tables, garbage cans, it would be the equipment to service the parks, mowers, groundskeeping equipment. It's a pretty broad category. And based on the needs of the parks and the grounds, kind of where you'd see a large amenities purchase or a large equipment side, I guess.
I know even when you look at that, and it says 25,000 for the budget, I know we bought those tables, didn't we?
Yes.
You know, so that doesn't show up on here yet.
And that's where,
Doesn't show
that's,
that actually.
in my opinion, I think that's where we can make some cuts and ease ourselves into it. I mean,
Especially by them good tables, you know, they should be able to
Buying
get separate quite a few years. out.
10 tables.
right, but I mean, just because we don't know everything that's really in there, but for instance, like tables, you know. I would look at, okay, say we need 12 tables, or we want 12 tables, get 6,
Yep,
you
and
know.
And
Because
that's what we're-
they're a big ticket item, and 30,000 is kind of a catch-all bucket, right?
Especially having a $5,000 increase in bill.
Yeah.
Well,
we
what's the
didn't use the
usage over the
25.
last years, right? I mean, there's been almost nothing charged
Almost
to that.
830.
Well, we did purchase some tables last month.
I know, I'm just saying over the last years, right? This year obviously isn't done. What's the 2020, 2021, 20?
2021 was 25,000. Okay, that was actually used, last year was 18,000. For that fund.
Then maybe we do over 18,000 plus 20%.
Maybe just cap it at 20.
And that's where I look at, okay. Some of these, just because there's money doesn't mean we need to spend it.
So that would be
Well, yeah, I
Can we
28.
cut back a little bit? I
Yeah, I
mean,
like
we
that
need
idea.
need to cut,
Let's cut that
so
down
it
to
hurts a
20.
little bit, because I mean, we're cutting fire department too.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
let's cut that down to 20,
To
because
30.
the 18 back here, we did buy tables.
mhm.
So if we cut it back to our current 25,000.
yeah, you guys are the officials, not me.
It's the last 3 years, 4 years.
We haven't hit the 20 yet, 20,000 mark
Mhm.
yet.
I would say.
Hit
drop it
25
to
and
20.
21.
Well, if we go to the other one, it was, I think the last, figure that was the 18,963, and then add 20% to that, you're at, 22,800.
Then you go on to line 355, you get $3,600 in miscellaneous expenses. It's a lot of shop rags.
Well, this is for.
But yeah,
That's a lot of doggy
Right.
bags for the neighbors to buy.
And I mean, so looking at line 353. I'd say
Cut it to 20.
22. Take that 18.
You're 22, okay?
To 22,000.
Yeah, like Warren said, you know, take that and add your 20%.
Okay.
22.
22.
Change it to 22.
And we said recreational was T.
What's the 3,100 in ground and cell phone reimbursement?
A lot of money for cell phones.
Well,
Yeah,
it
Jeez,
I guess I don't understand. that.
unlimited stuff and, for people, what,
Well,
that's
that's,
12 months?
wow, we had 20, we used 20, over 2,400. We had 1,200 budgeted. What happened there?
Wow.
Is that just for,
Cell phones?
yeah, is that just for your,
Is there-
oh,
is
Kane,
everybody
but
in?
isn't that
It says
with the
times four.
iPads?
Yeah, it's got 4 people.
The
No,
cell phone?
That's just the cell phone reimbursement, what you're seeing there, it's charged to Parks and Rec.
But is that just Parks and Rec cell phones?
It's charged to Parks and Rec, so there's 4
So
full-time
4
staff,
yeah.
myself and 3 others. That's where you're seeing that charge. For the cell phone reimbursement that we carry for all the departments. Water, sewer, streets, roads, parks, facilities. You're seeing it come out of here. Park and Rec.
Okay.
So what about the training? What part of training is there for the grounds?
Pesticide application, tree identification. Those are 2 big ones.
Yeah, so I guess I could see we're 20% because we're gonna add a staff.
Yeah.
We're asking to.
But we buy a I'm back on the mower thing. We buy a mower every 3 years,
Every year.
every year.
Pretty cool.
We buy 1 or 2.
They're rotating one every year.
We got 32,000 budgeted for a $17,000 mower.
So that repair, maintenance, grounds mower, that's not just the mower, that's the rest of the equipment, the grounds keeping equipment.
ATM.
ATV,
ATVs, I mean,
saws,
Oh, yeah.
it's not just one more.
let's move on to community center.
Can you talk a little bit, Kane, about training? Cause I know our actual is just under 2, we budgeted 3.
Yep.
And I know there is training coming up. Can you talk a little bit about that or?
So this last year was an off year for me, but it was an on year for the 2 other employees. For pesticide and trees, so. Now next year, it'll be myself and our new full-time employee,
Okay,
so it just depends on that rotation. Now, that's the minimum to stay certified, so. There's other training out there that's above and beyond your minimum certification. You could go every year to these classes. But
so let me ask, so this training, would this include training for the treatment plant?
No,
That's
no,
separate.
that's all gonna be different.
That's all gotta be
that's gonna be
separate.
sewer enterprise.
So this is
funds.
in addition.
This is basically pesticide applications.
Yeah. Well,
Whatever you
with,
squirt in the grass.
yeah, so with that, could we just keep that at 3?
Yeah, that's fine.
Instead of 35?
I wanna ask the council here, what happens if we go over? I mean, look at some of the other departments year to date that are over and above the budget amount, what happens? You know what I mean? It's not like it doesn't get paid,
Right.
right? Like the transfer switch at the fire hall needed to get replaced. It was a $12,000 expense, right? We were only budgeted for 9,000. What happens?
Yeah, I'm just talking about training though.
Right, and so what I'm saying to you is, if we go over on training. What's
Let's go over, you
Consequences.
go over.
Yeah, you'll know what it is. So if someone asks for training, you look at the amount that it is and how much is in the checkbook.
right, but what I'm saying, Jim, is if it's a matter of somebody not keeping their certification. Right, aren't we gonna go for it anyway?
Yeah, we would have to.
Yep.
And with this new person coming in, and you've got John too,
So,
that's
we're-
relatively new this year, not having all of his stuff that he needs to have, so you're basically dealing with 2 people that are new. You know, Kingsley's got it and that's taken care of, but still.
why don't we leave it at 3587 if we're gonna
I think we're right
Talk about
there.
$500.
Yeah, just let it go.
Leave it alone.
Okay. Leave it. Community center,
I think the only addition they have on there, and I know we had talked about it, is having a professional cleaning crew come in to clean. Do things that way, which is that additional 10,000. Because it is being used by a lot of people. I mean, this room and the facility is pretty well used, I think.
What was that?
I said depending on the week, yeah.
sometimes every Saturday and Sunday, but there's nobody cleaning in between them, but
Yeah.
they are asked to clean, to vacuum if they do, we make a mess. The utility room is open, so
What are the $2,400 in supplies? That's a lot of toilet paper.
paper for the Xerox copier. Unless there's a paper contract.
That usually goes under office supplies. This would be cleaning garbage bags, paper towels. I think, right?
Yeah, the big one that sticks out here would be line 375.
Yeah, what is that?
So repair and maintenance buildings in 2023, it was talked about to increase that to 30,000 for security, cameras,
Some remodeling.
some light remodeling. And year to date, you see that we just haven't done that.
Looks like we cut that down to about 15 anyway then.
Well, I think we need the security. I think we need some of that stuff, especially with plant going in, that we've got to have a way to watch everything that's going on with the city.
Mhm.
So we're bringing all these other people too, there may be some additional furniture upstairs,
Mhm.
so. Right, we need to go out and start getting contracts too for cleaning, getting estimates.
Mhm. How often are you
Right.
planning on cleaning, every other week or every week, or?
I didn't even know we were doing it, so I have no idea.
I know Sonny had talked about that. That's why I know that was coming.
So I see we budget for boiler insurance, but we haven't actually done anything. We spent $10 last year.
We got a brand new boiler.
Well,
It
it
just went in last
should
year.
be insurance, it should be a warranty on that thing for 3 years, right?
I think you have to probably insure a
2
boiler anyway that you gotta have, so.
Different insurance,
Yeah.
uh,
Boiler insurance.
different than what you're thinking.
What kind of boiler is it?
It's a low pressure boiler, but now it's newly installed. It doesn't meet the requirement set by the Department of Labor and Industry to be insured. So that's why it's off the list.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna just remind us, we're at almost 10 o'clock. We need to move.
Yeah.
This is going too long.
General housekeeping, general maintenance. So here's another line 392. I made reference to that earlier, but we'll have a meeting, one of the thoughts before the meeting is that we need to bring over this 5618. And we can do that as another,
So one of the increases you'll see there, council members, is general maintenance groundskeeping, Department 45, 123. Those wages, employee benefits, para, and payroll taxes were all rolled into Parks and Rec. So when you want to look at that department comparison tab, I mean, we kind of combined two departments into one. A good portion of that, so. When you do look at that department comparison tab and you see those large increases for Parks and Rec. When you're looking at 44, 30, 70, again, just shy of $90,000 that went from general maintenance groundskeeping into Parks and Rec.
Part of the comment here. Community center, the hiring center. And these maintenance and ground, those went into these other departments, so that's why they bumped around, so.
Yeah.
So as we come down to the bottom here. I just punched in the serial as the salaries for the seasonals, that's about 18,000.
Yeah.
Economic development. This is a percentage of our salaries, staff. The contract for next year for 2024. So we added a new line item here, a new number of contract labor to cover that. That person is here every Thursday of every week, so. This is
Are we keeping that person busy right now?
she's busy. In fact, I think she's doing some work at home too for us, but. So let's then come down to our transfer out. Now, this is where we transfer out of our CIP to the general fund. And this is kind of we use this, so right now what's planned now for the CIP is, right now we have the pickup that's coming sometime in 2024. If you've heard something different.
Nope, 2024.
So the plan was to use 50,000 for that. So the concerning factor I have about doing that is that I'd like to increase that 100,000 into the general fund to 175,000. And what that is, when we did our cash flow analysis for a wastewater treatment plant, we put in 100,000 every year for the first 3 or 4 years to help us overcome the lack of funding from the user rates. We were very conservative when we looked at our startup was going to be like 10 homes per year. And then increasing that, but the first 3 or 4 years, we were very conservative with our 10 homes a year. So that's why we're at 1,000, but if we were to increase it to 1,000 or increase it to 175,000. And we take 50 out of that for the pickup, that's 125,000. That's just really it gives us a warm fuzzy cushion that as we get into, because the treatment plant and operation expenses, we don't know what we don't know. We have a contract for the people that are going to operate it, but we have no idea about electricity, gas. We estimated what it is when we did this last year or year before. And so it's kind of a cushion. You could probably get by adding 50,000 to make it a clean 100,000 like we're projecting. 125 or 75,000 would be a little more cushion. But I really would like, this is the #1 project. It overlooks fire trucks and all those other high dollar items that we've been talking about recently. Because if we miss the mark, then we're increasing sewer rates. So the idea is to get us through this first 3 or 4 years of every year contributing CIP funds to it.
Well, I mean, if, in reality, if we budget that and it goes in, it's going in the bank is what you're really saying, and we can use it from there, which is.
To use it, that's great. Yeah, we
Yeah.
need to use it. Yeah.
Right, so I don't mind, putting a cushion that's in there knowing it's going in the bank and it's gonna be used for good purposes down the road. Cause there are gonna be larger expenses that are gonna be coming, like what we're looking at with the pumper and these other things that are gonna be out there. You know, so, but I mean, that's cushions it. Yeah, you're right. We don't know what the costs are gonna be without it.
And granted, when we first hook up next March, April, May, obviously the first thing that's gonna hook up the quickest to give us user fees is Orinoco Estates, the Riverwood Hills, the Cedar Woodlands, the River Park, because those are 1-point connections.
Right.
Infrastructure's already there. So that's definitely gonna help. Is it enough? We don't know, because we're relying on the other 200 individual septic systems to hook up over a year's period per our ordinance today, so we're not gonna get the full benefit, 500 users until 2025, or maybe 2025-6.
How many users does the Orinoco Estates generate?
It's it's close to 200 now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they plan to expand sometime in the future, so.
I didn't realize it was still that big.
So yeah, they're ready to hook on right away for what's going on.
So they're
Yeah.
limited to capacity. We have a flow meter, we'll have a flow meter at their lift station, so their limit is 55,000 gallons per day, so. Don't know how many homes that's gonna take, but that's their 11% of our sewage treatment plant capacity, which is quite a bit, so.
No, I think, I mean, if you look at even if grinder goes out, grinder's what, 15,000?
Yeah, I mean, it's.
I mean, so you're looking,
Some life, yeah. Well, we got 83 of the grinder stations.
but I'm just saying, I mean, you're gonna have maintenance, you're gonna have a lot of stuff that's gonna be going on that we can't put a finger on right now. You know, and the amount of time it's gonna take for, I think, Kane's people too, to be watching what's going on, so I think it'd be good to have a.
What's the expected life expectancy of them grinder stations?
I don't know what that number is. I've never heard really. I would hope it's 10,
It'd be
15
nice-
years, but it's,
Be nice
it
to
doesn't
know
run all the time, the grinder station itself has got about a 70-gallon tank. So as that fills up, then it pumps down, and so it's not running continuously, so.
Right, but I guess I'm just throwing it out there that we don't need 83 grinder stations pop in year 14. Now we got 83 grinder stations. to
That's a
replace.
possibility.
Exactly.
It is.
Exactly.
Deny that.
True.
That's the thing about it not being phased in 8 or 10, 15 over the years, each year.
I think
How
it'd
do you
be,
build that stuff out though too, right? Because like me, I said, my tax go up 44%. I'm still having to pay for my own private well, my own private septic. And if my taxes are going up even with everyone else's, I don't really consider that fair. We gotta make sure we're putting the right costs into usage fees. And the infrastructure that has to be shared can be spread across the city residents, but you can't share some of those expenses with people that have additional expenses because they don't have city sewer and water.
Mine's going up 42% without the,
Right.
without the,
And I'm with
assessment,
Warren,
so-
cause I feel,
Yeah.
I feel like doing this, we're having to pay for it now. We're having to pay for those who are already hooked up, even though we're not hooked up yet, our taxes are still going up because of this. And I'm with you,
Equally or more.
right, exactly. Yep. And then when we hook up, we're gonna get hit again. So I don't think proportionately it's right.
we get hit both sides right now too, so.
At the same time, if we say we didn't put any CIP money into it. And we relied on user rates, it's, this is kind of our insurance to make sure to try and keep our rates at a minimum, at lower as possible too, to support this, so. But as we bring more in, as we go through our P and Z lot sizes, we increase our density, that's more users, and so. Hopefully that'll kind of counter, as we increase the users, the CIP will fall off because we know we can substantiate that, so we're trying to keep the plant running for future years too as well.
Right. I mean, I get that. But I just feel like we're paying in advance for something we're paying for something that we're not getting. Yes, we're getting the idea of having it in the future to hook up to it, but we're not hooked up to it, but we're still,
I know where you're
Taxes are
coming
going up.
from. I understand totally, Jim, because I felt the same way living in this part of town. And phase one of the water system, we got to pay for the tower and the main line running through town.
and you weren't hooked up.
Well, we had to hook up, but we paid for
Oh.
that, but the whole town's gonna use the tower, the whole town's gonna use this main line,
Mhm.
you know?
When they're hooked up.
Well, everybody's gonna be hooked up
Yeah.
eventually, you know, everybody got water, but it's just the point of. I'm not talking about, cause when you get it, you're gonna end up with the user fees on it. We paid to put it in there. Cause it was spread out across those that were gonna be using it.
It would have been great to do the whole city.
Couldn't at the same
Yeah.
time, you know,
A lot of money, but. There are lots and.
it's a tool.
I just said you have to be careful about what you build to each side.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Everyone's responsible for some level of.
Yep,
infrastructure.
absolutely, absolutely, because it's infrastructure, and I would like to believe that it's gonna increase our property values.
Like to believe that.
Yeah, I'd like to believe it. So, okay,
Well, we hope so too, because, you know, people that don't have it, that live with every house around them being on the sewer system and one house isn't, you know, they're gonna be questioned about their value of their house as well when everybody else has it, so.
I'm not just ready to jump on the bandwagon wanting to increase my property value, cause that just means somebody's gonna raise my taxes some more. That's all that means.
It's across the state of Minnesota, it's, you know, we're here in Advocate.
Okay, so where are we at on everything up there then?
I would, I'd go 150 on that, and see if, I try it.
150, I'm okay with that, the 100 is what we had, so.
I try 150, that way it takes it up for what we're doing with the truck, and that takes care of the truck. It still leaves 100 that's in there for us, which is what we wanted to do anyway, right?
And really that'll only be 3/4 of the year, you know, operation ain't gonna start until April, late March, April, so. It's not a full year's worth of
Revenue coming off the sewer,
unforeseen
right?
problems or
Unforeseen
the
expenses.
unknowns,
Yeah, you only got 3/4 a year of the unknowns.
one way to look at it.
So, bottom line, looking at how that impacted our total levy compared to what we had on the preliminary. We're down 105,000 to 1.4, which is a 0.449 tax rate, which I know this is. It's still a lot of money, but at the same time, if you look at Orinoco itself, this is the lowest tax rate in the county. That's a nice thing to say, but at the same time, it's affecting our every homeowner's taxes but we're trying to bring the fire department along. We're trying to make sure we're operational and we can meet our commitments with the CIP support for the treatment plant and infrastructure and lift stations.
You know, one thing I would add to this conversation is we had no discussion on streets and roads. This last year, 2023, Joe Palin came back to us with $270,000 worth of seal coating and striping and repairs, preventative maintenance, items. And the city decided to go with option one, around $60,000 of those repairs. And being that 2024 is not a seal coat year, every other year, you know, that just defers those maintenance costs down the road. You know, we had, you know, there's $200,000, you could say, that didn't get done this year. Now that's gonna have to wait a whole nother year. And then that just pushes the rest of the other future street projects down even further.
Mhm.
So what I'm saying to you is, next year, this time when we have a budget conversation, streets and roads needs to be a priority for 2025. You know what I mean? Fire and first responders are getting a heck of a increase this year that we're all feeling, taxpayers, myself included. But, you know, that'll be a reality for 2025 if we want to talk streets. Maintaining our current infrastructure.
At the same time, no, at the same time, sewer project gave us almost 3.9 or 4 miles of new streets. That we wouldn't have to do several years.
No, but
So that's a huge plus.
sure would be a benefit to seal coat them joints.
5 to 7 years, we will have to seal coat these brand new roads. So don't forget about that. They're only new for
They're only
5 to
new for,
7 years.
they're only new for 1 year.
Right, so. I just know we didn't touch on streets and roads tonight, and I just. Bring that up.
So I will go back through this, what we talked about with all the changes. And hopefully the 1.401 is the same figure you see Tuesday night. I'll work on that, make sure it's.
You know, I think one thing that we have to keep in mind is, we have to step this up. Because kicking the can down the road and going like 1 year doubles what it's gonna be the next year. And it's a reality of what's going on. If you look at the other communities, I think we're pretty much even with all the communities around, but what it really takes to maintain the city, so.
I mean, I say, you know, I think it's something that we are the lowest rate. We haven't seen, of course, but I think we will be one of the lowest rates. We always are. There's a lot of communities that are 105%.
I thought there was a cap on that. They couldn't go that
No,
high.
that's only right.
Stewartville and some of the bigger cities,
But
but
we don't have it.
the Dovers, the Otas, they're at 75, 80.
You know, so I mean, it's something to keep in mind if we want to keep the city, we're gonna have to invest in it.
I always thought there was a cap on that. I didn't realize it just for.
Your mayor, could I just add something? Thank you for letting me be here. It's been eye-opening, you know, and I think you've done a good job on your budget. Getting back to the auditor, I just want to remind the city council, we have 25 days before we hit January 1. And your audit will start January 1. So if you want to go with our same city auditor to look at those cash and do a kind of a recap, you could, you know, we'll have the audit done probably, I think usually by March, they want the audit done. So, and that's, I think, when you're planning to start a new person. So then your audit would incorporate that
Mhm.
mini audit that you want done.
Sure.
So maybe if you think about it, we'll talk about it on the 21st, but it just came to my mind, 21 days and we're already starting the audit, the real audit.
Okay.
So think about that and so you can decide, but I don't know how we'd get anybody in here any quicker. Who is your auditor, by the way?
Smith.
Smith and Schaefer,
What is it?
Smith and Schaefer.
Oh, Smith and Schaefer.
With that, I'll make a motion. The meeting adjourned.
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Thank you. Thanks for
You wanna give
Take
the
it with
mayor
us. Everyone.